Hello,
Got it.
everyone, and welcome to Archaeo Viking. We are today is the final video in my series on public archaeology and public history. Mainly because one of the main subjects that we have been talking about in this series, the past four videos, has finally dropped. That being Graham Hancock's second season of Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix, specifically
Nuts.
specifically the episode that we have all been talking about, where the actor Keanu Reeves had uh, thrown in his lot with Graham Hancock. Now, previously, I and another archaeologist and Morgan Kinney, Archaeo Wolf here, who is joining me again as a regular guest host. We've all both in
Am I?
videos and in private. Yeah, you're a pretty regular guest host. You've been on three or
How
four
many times
videos.
have I done this? I don't even know.
I think three or four. Yeah,
Really?
but yeah, yeah. I think so. Yeah,
No.
yeah. But um, but
Well,
anyways,
ladies and gentlemen, I'm really keeping up with, where
yeah,
I'm at.
yeah. But like we
Obviously working for some big Illuminati thing hiding all the secrets. I can't even figure out my own fucking weekend.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we've all talked both in videos and in private about why we thought Keanu Reeves was going to be on Ancient Apocalypse, and it usually ranged between we thought he bought into the Flavor Aid. No, not Kool-Aid. Look it up. It's too long an explanation to describe on video. Just Google it. Um, or he got offered a bunch of money, or both. And we were expecting him to potentially be in every single episode because that's, to be honest, how the commercials were playing it off.
Right?
However, I have gone the Ancient Apocalypse dropped. I think season two dropped. I think yesterday, because that's when I first saw it, and the day before I had heard nothing about it. Um, and so I fast forwarded through the first
16th.
episode. Yeah, through the first. Oh, it dropped the 16th. So yeah,
I think so because Archeo Soup, who's one of our
yeah,
cohort
yeah,
in England, posted
he
a thing about it
yeah, that's
that I
right.
saw this morning. And if
Yeah,
he's operating 8 hours ahead of me,
yeah. Then
y-
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
so
exactly.
maybe it dropped. Well, maybe it dropped yesterday. I don't
Yeah,
know.
either way. But yeah, but like I fast forwarded through the first episode. And Keanu Reeves is only in it for about a minute. I think like maybe a minute and a half. And he doesn't seem to actually be buying into it. It's more the scene that was more Graham Hancock asking Keanu what he thought about the past, and like Keanu saying, "Well, I've always been, curious about it and inquisitive." And then Graham Hancock spending taking a minute to just brag about how much he quote unquote air
But he's
quotes
not an expert.
knows. Yeah, but he's not an
But he's not
expert.
an archaeologist.
Yeah,
So he's talking about archaeology, but he's not an archaeologist. And he's
yeah,
presenting it in a
exactly.
way like he's an expert, but he's not an archaeologist.
Yeah, exactly. And
That,
then the scene pans out while Keanu and Graham are still
oh, fancy,
talking.
fancy camera work that keeps you guessing.
Yeah,
It's not
so
like
I
this
would
is a
love
TV
to.
show that's trying to
Yeah,
sell you laundry soap.
yeah, so I would love to. For one, I would love to see the rest of that conversation. For two, it really just seems like that rather than being either or both, it was most likely Netflix approached Keanu and like, hey, here's a bunch of money. Come on to the show for a few minutes. You know, it'll be easy money. And Keanu was like, sure, thumbs up. And then that was it. And then and
Yeah,
Graham was just using it as a bragging
that's
point.
that's all it is.
Yeah,
So so
yeah,
this ties up. I literally hit the post
yeah,
responding to a comment not 45 seconds before I hit the link to come in here.
yeah,
And the reason why Hancock or why Keanu Reeves is on the show, and we talked about it. I mean,
yeah,
you talked about it. I talked every single archaeologist, Tad Stormer, who's not an
yeah.
archaeologist, but
Who's a
deals with
historian? Yeah, yeah,
history and public outreach and stuff like that. We talked about what this means, the connotation of Keanu Reeves, who is not an archaeologist, he's not a historian. Keanu Reeves is a celebrity.
and it's bringing
He's an
legitimacy.
actor.
Yeah,
He's a very good actor. He's very popular. He's got a lot of following in respect to doing philanthropy or doing.
Mm,
He has a presence and a what's the word I'm looking for?
gravitas, maybe you could say.
Gravitas.
Yeah,
He's got an orbit, right?
yeah,
He's things gravitate to him because he's important in society. He's culturally important. There we go. Um, but you know, why would we pay attention to anything Keanu Reeves says about archaeology, other than the fact that it's Keanu Reeves saying it?
yeah,
Not a thing. Not a thing.
yeah,
So the fact that he is on the show, the fact that he is in the commercial, the fact that Graham Hancock was able to get a couple of Twitter
yeah,
posts off about it and everything shows one thing. And that is not that they are bringing him in as someone who's actually interested in learning. They're not bringing him in as someone who's going to be doing the investigation. They are bringing him in for as much as they can afford, because apparently if
yeah,
he was only in the show for 60 seconds,
yeah,
that's a waste of his time. They're
yeah.
bringing him in as a look. Here is a big, famous, socially important
Mm-hmm.
person who is also believing in this or who is curious about this and stuff.
Yep.
And as much as we can be professionals in this field all we want,
Yeah.
it takes 1,000 of us to match up to to the public appearance of one Keanu.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yep.
the gimmick. That is the
Yeah.
gimmick. It it went away from, they were looking for something, because the first season immediately caught shit
Yeah.
and got called out. And what, Graham Hancock can't go back to what? Uh
Chaco Canyon there or
Chaco
something.
Canyon. He can't go back, or he was denied filming at Serpent Mound. He can't go back to Malta.
Yeah. Oh
Like, did
yeah, he can't go
Malta
back to
tell him to
Malta.
to pound fucking
Yeah.
sand?
Yeah.
Apparently, and I read this relatively recently. He's not welcome in Java
Oh really?
over Gunung Padang.
That doesn't surprise me.
He's because he has
Yeah.
misrepresented all of this cultural history that even the locals whose
Yeah.
ancestors built these places are like,
Yeah.
that's not what our history says.
Yeah.
And no one seems to question anything about a European history story or
Yeah.
Christian history story. You can go all the way back. Let's just use the Bible because it's easy to pick on.
Yeah.
Go back all the way 100% to Adam and Eve. There does not seem to be any sort of argument where anybody's looking at that going, this is this is the beginning. This is
Yeah.
why everything comes along. This story goes along pretty uninterrupted.
Yeah.
It's very strange that every single culture around the planet Graham Hancock has decided to go up to don't have that
Yeah.
Adam and Eve moment
Yeah.
of some white guy showing up and giving them stuff.
Yeah.
And I know some people may argue that point, and some people will raise their hand and go,
Uh,
"Hey, can you explain this? Because I heard it here." That's the white God hypothesis stuff that
yeah.
came out as propaganda in the 1500s because of the colonial Spanish,
Yeah.
which is immediately where his first book, Graham Hancock's first
Mm-hmm.
book, picks up
Yeah.
the fingerprints of the gods. And I talked about how many times the word white is in that book.
Yeah.
And there's 20 specific examples where they're talking about a white bearded guy or white bearded entity or pale skinned
Yeah.
entity giving civilization and technology and agriculture to all of the primitives, which
Yeah.
their words, not mine.
Yeah.
Not mine. In no way, shape, or form has humanity ever been primitive.
No.
Humanity's been on a sliding scale with the rest of the world they enact with.
Yeah.
You bring somebody from 40,000 years ago to today, 2024, and expect them to run a Zoom and drive a car and all this. Yeah, they're primitive. The world they lived in,
Was
they
not.
weren't.
Yeah.
And the world has changed in accordance to them moving along. Hi, Akaton, get down, dog.
Yeah.
Down, lay down. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is a gimmick. Graham
Mm-hmm.
Hancock got caught out and had to address a lot of things, and it created drama, which ironically enough is exactly what he does. And the pick and the fight with archaeologists is no longer enough of a gimmick. So now Keanu Reeves has to show his face. And now it's not Graham Hancock versus archaeology. It's Graham Hancock and Keanu Reeves because of a 60-second thing that people are going to pick up on. Because again, we will notice that Keanu Reeves is not in the show. We're going to notice that. We're going to point out, be like, hey, where is he supposed to be? Because he's been presented as. That show is marketed to people who do not have the same depth of thinking. Not that they can't, but it's not a skill set that was well, it's in this case, it's not a skill set. I know people who it never went to high school, that their depth of thinking and their focus and critical thinking on something that they are professional in
Yeah.
is mind-boggling. I do know a guy who's an archaeologist who didn't finish high school, and he's one of the best archaeologists I've met. Small
Yeah.
engine mechanics, I can't do that. A lot of
Yeah.
them guys, a lot of these blue-collar guys, they're absolute experts in their field.
Yeah.
Critical thinking about something, how we process, is not a skill set that they're necessarily going to have. We don't have the skill set they have.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
called a focus in your worldview. This Keanu Reeves thing, him being in the show for 60 seconds, is all they need.
Yep. That's all they
Meanwhile,
need. Yeah.
we're like, well, he's in it. Okay, there he is for 60 seconds, and they talk a bunch of shit that doesn't actually go anywhere. And we
Yeah.
can watch the rest of the show, and he might not appear in anything other than the opening credits. But the fact that he is there are people who are going to put legitimacy on this shit because Keanu Reeves is there. Not because it's real, but because Keanu Reeves. Why would Keanu Reeves allow himself to be involved with something that's a lie? And for some reason, people don't seem to recognize that Keanu Reeves is a human, and money in the United States, capitalism is the thing to do.
Yeah.
You guarantee he didn't show up and do that pro bono.
No.
Guaranteed he didn't reach out and go, hey, I want to be a part of this because I think what you're doing is cool. No. Somebody said, hey, I got a thing here. And for all the people who are like, oh, his people, he might not have known what he was doing going into it. I think absolutely he did. Because he has people to thin out that, you know how many things he probably gets in a day?
Yeah.
He's got people to sort and shuffle and toss. And they probably took that thing, looked at the money on the bottom of the bill, and put that in the, hey, Keanu should look at this seriously file. And they brought him a file of a dozen things that week. And they said, here's this. You're going to make $100,000 off of a minute.
Yeah. Or whatever number they threw at him. Because, you know,
Oh, it's probably way more than $100,000. I'm just throwing a number out there. But it's like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the entirety of this show is now going to float along. And because Keanu Reeves is in the trailer and because Keanu Reeves is in the 60 seconds of the first episode, there is going to suddenly be more for society to lose if we tell Graham Hancock he's full of shit. No one's going to care. If we tell Keanu Reeves John Wick he's full of shit, then all the hell's going to break loose. But then I also did a live the other day where I was talking about the archaeology of ritual and magic and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I heard that apparently if you nail a chicken foot to the door, it keeps away Baba Yaga. So it's like, well, do we put a chicken foot on the door to keep away Keanu Reeves? And that is the level of archaeology nerddom and stuff that the common person is not gonna fucking follow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you know, going on the white thing, because you know, whenever we bring up Graham Hancock and his theories being racist, you know, they're like, oh, prove it, and it's like, okay, I can prove it. Well, and one of the ways I can prove it is actually not via his ancient apocalypse or his fingerprints of the gods or any of the other things that we can use to prove it. I can prove it by looking at something similar based off of similar theories. Ancient aliens, because 2 weeks ago, I did with a debunking video with other archaeologists, mutuals of ours. And, you know, debunking ancient
Yeah, I was
aliens
supposed to be there for
episodes.
that, but I wasn't.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, no, it's okay. But it happens. But like, I was like, prior to that, I was like, I'm curious. So like, I got onto like my Amazon Prime and I scrolled through like each of the episodes of each season, just seeing like, okay, are there any European sites mentioned whatsoever? And with the exception of Stonehenge and one episode on the Norse gods, there's jack and shit about
Did,
European
so real quick,
spots. Yeah.
did you watch the episode on Stonehenge?
No, but I read the description and I know what it is. It's all like mysticism and bullshit. Oh, what is it?
That's one I watched.
Oh, you did. Okay.
That's one I watched a long time ago. And it's really interesting the language used.
What is it?
Well, the language, okay, so the pyramids built
Yeah.
by aliens,
Yeah.
okay? All these places around the world, the technology is given to, gifted to,
Yeah.
humans are enslaved, humans are engineered,
Yeah.
aliens did it all, and humans just moved in. All of these things about all of these non-European,
Mhm.
non-Christian peoples
Yeah.
are they are beholden to.
Yeah.
They owe something because they're just not capable of doing.
Yeah.
Except when you watch the episode at Stonehenge, which is a really interesting way for the white people to communicate directly with the aliens on the same plane
Uh-huh.
as as equals.
Of course.
Stonehenge was built by man, by white men, to
Yeah.
communicate with.
Yeah.
So it's right there, the
Yeah.
one site in all of the world that is built to communicate directly on a one-on-one, mano-a-mano kind of thing with aliens, supposedly,
Supposedly, yeah.
is built in Britain by white people.
Yeah.
There's more stone in one pyramid than I think is in all of Wales. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah,
That's on the
exactly.
surface. And they didn't have the red telephone to
Yeah.
call the alien embassy. What the fuck is that?
I know. It's like, yeah, but that's exactly my point. It's like and obviously I didn't watch each of those episodes even a few minutes in, but like scrolling through, you just the titles and the description is just like this is all like other, and then the ones that weren't about ancient sites, because later in the later seasons there were a lot that weren't even about ancient sites. Some were even about Roswell. I'm just like,
Oh, yeah.
this is supposed to be ancient aliens, and you're talking about a
Ancient aliens. Well,
conspiracy theory from the '60s. You know?
well, the other thing to look at with Ancient Aliens being a perfect example of this as well
Yeah,
is Ancient Aliens has been running for what, 22 seasons?
yeah,
How many,
something
20
like that.
years? You
Yeah,
know?
something like that. Yeah,
So that's a lot of the same thing to do.
yeah,
And notice if anybody who's watched the shows watches this or listens to this,
yeah,
they might notice this and realize it. If they didn't before, they're going to realize it now.
yeah,
Is that every single thing changes based on
hmm
how the last season was called out.
yeah,
So the first season and the second season, you have technology used by aliens and things built by aliens and da 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 da. And the
yeah,
aliens are physical beings, you
yep.
know. And then by the fourth, fifth season, the aliens conveniently are made out of pure energy. And they walk on this plane of existence, but they walk in a different dimension on this plane of existence. So they can
Of
be seen and
course.
heard, but they walk through the sand and they don't leave footprints.
Oh
They,
yeah,
they can't they can't articulate things in our space, so their human servants do it for them. So every single thing that archaeologists or historians or anybody says, hey, can you account for the lack of material culture, the lack of this, the lack of DNA? Because I mean, if there's one thing that archaeologists,
hmm
I mean, anthropologists, this is just a thing we do. Um,
yeah,
drinking and and and
hmm
and adult activities.
yeah, yeah.
We're
Fucking
human.
yeah,
Why is none of that? Why is there no evidence of that? And I'm sorry, have you seen the stuff that they make? That there's a whole subset of the internet that's focused on this stuff. You can't mean to
yeah,
tell me that if aliens were real, they
yeah.
just so happen to be celibate? No, 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 no.
No,
They're
yeah,
solid, but I mean, getting back to the whole serious thing, because I mean, we
yeah,
can fall down a really horrific rabbit hole here. Looking at it very seriously, there is, the archaeologists or the professionals call out and say, hey, You got to
Yeah.
account for A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, you've
Yeah.
got way too many issues here, and we can call you out on it. And then every single episode, it gets a little wilder and a little crazier, just like what's his name's hair. And then they get to a point where the archaeologist can't answer the question or can't respond to it because it is literally, you guys listened to what we said and made up something that we absolutely that covers every single thing without saying that you're wrong.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
here's how they did it. They watched Stargate up until the ancients were introduced. And it's like it's the ancients, you know.
but but you got to remember
Yeah.
is the entire Stargate system is built by the ancients. The
Yeah.
entire planets, the entire reason humanity throughout the Stargate universe is on all of these planets is because of the
Yeah.
ancients and or the Goa'uld who are using stolen ancient tech.
Yeah.
There is ancient technology and material culture in Pegasus Galaxy, Othala, where the Ori come from. And then if you watch Stargate Universe, every single galaxy that the
It's
Seed
seated
ships
with
and the
yeah.
Destiny went through, which how the Destiny's been traveling for 10 million years at the speed of light. How many galaxies is that if you're going 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah.
Who knows? But there
Yeah.
is material culture traced back to the ancients all the way
Yeah.
across existence, as far as we know it, before they decided to turn themselves into lightning bugs and ascend.
Yeah.
An alien species of pure boof and light has to get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Stands scientifically, anyway, stands to reason. Because if they didn't, if you had aliens that just poof are pure energy, why would they interact
Yeah.
with
Why would
us?
they give a shit? Yeah. Why would
Why
they
would
give
they
a shit?
interact with anything material?
Yeah.
They don't need spaceships. They don't need to they don't need anything that we would consider to be a complete energy thing.
Hmm.
That nothing about being an energy being can even be quantifiable to humans
Yeah.
because we are still basing everything we know of off of us.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day with science fiction, why everything in science fiction is inherently human.
Yeah.
Because even if you're creating the most crazy creature that is an alien, that creature still is inspired by,
Humanity.
or will you stop? I'm on the thing. Is still inspired by or operates under some sort of, OS operating system that we recognize because we thought it up. You
Yeah.
know, this creature is all blah and all this stuff. And like, well, somebody under a microscope has seen like, well, that's the flagellum of an amoeba or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a thing that has been viewed for a
Mhm.
human, and here's the inspiration. So it's, you know,
Yeah.
so the ancient aliens thing is ridiculous. The Graham
Yeah.
Hancock thing is right on the same track as that. But the
Yeah.
thing about Graham Hancock is that every single thing that he talks about can be traced back to one
Yeah.
guy, which
Yeah.
is Ignatius Donnelly, because yeah,
Yeah. Well, and again, and Ignatius Donnelly's ideas can be traced back to the fucking mound builder myth because he was a senator who believed in the mound builder myth,
yeah.
and
And
he was
notice
just
how all
yeah.
of those are specifically invented
Yeah.
in order to
Explain away. Yeah.
disassociate
Yeah.
and displace indigenous history and
Yep.
culture on the landscape.
Yeah.
It is so easy
Yeah.
just to say, oh, hey, you guys moved in and you're not really the
Yeah.
landlords, you're just squatters. That
Yeah.
is literally the mindset behind colonialism.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to move in and you're either going to like us, we're going to kill y'all, or you're going to give up every single thing about your culture, identity, religion,
Hmm.
existence, reason for being, and you're going to pretend that you're us.
Yeah.
But we're not going to treat you like that.
Yeah.
So the colonial mindset, the very racially driven mindset that is the mound builders and the mound builder myths and Ignatius Donnelly and stuff like that, that feeds Graham Hancock stuff, it does not take a deep dive
No.
to establish. Well, okay, fine. Graham Hancock may not intentionally be trying to be racist, but he's standing up and using the same talking points as somebody who literally pushed for indigenous people to be put on reservations
Yep.
under the control of the U.S. Army as enemy combatants,
Yeah.
like a POW camp, which is Ignatius Donnelly. Will you stop, please? I'm on the thing. Dog, you're such a pain.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry, my
and
dog is here and he's making a
yeah.
bunch of noise. I don't know if you can
Yeah.
hear him.
No, we can't hear him.
Oh,
But
good.
well, like in
Go
even
back to your Chewy.
in that same vein. Now, this is not anything. This is not necessarily connected to Graham, but is within the same vein. Is very similar ideas were used for, say, the discovery of Great Zimbabwe in Africa. It was discovered, and because Britain and other European powers were colonial powers and were subjugating, persecuting, genociding the indigenous peoples of Africa, and they come across this, advanced, elaborately built city in the central part of southern Africa, Zimbabwe. They were like, oh, it can't be, the indigenous Africans, the Shona peoples who've lived here for millennia who built this. No, it had to be either Vikings, Egyptians, Celts,
Anybody else?
yeah, anybody else.
Anybody else? And for
Yeah,
I know if the eagle-eyed people in the audience hear what
yeah,
you just said. Egyptians.
yeah. Were considered
Egyptians
white.
aren't white.
Yeah, but they were considered white by Europeans. Similar
They're
with,
also in the Bible.
yeah,
That's
similar,
another thing
yeah,
that
yeah,
really folds into a bunch of this stuff is
yeah.
this religious component. And I know people are going to be like, you guys are just picking on Christians. No, no,
Well,
understand something.
yeah,
A faith system has to not be questioned. It has to
yeah,
answer everything, right? At least
yeah.
Christianity is supposed to have all the answers. Well,
Hmm.
how does Christianity account for people that are not in the Bible? People that existed and had civilizations and technology and stuff that God didn't give them.
Hmm.
How do you quantify that? And how, as a believer,
Yeah,
how can you continue to believe in a God who's been like, hey, I'm the only show in town except for all of this other stuff, which I'm not going to bother to tell you about,
yeah,
or I'm not going to acknowledge, or you're going to figure out 1,500 years from now? That is the problem. And again, this is certainly not a God problem, but this is the population problem, those
yeah.
in charge problem. Who is the biggest in charge entity in Europe during the age of colonialism?
Britain
The
followed shortly.
church.
Yeah. Oh, the church.
The
Yeah,
church.
yeah,
You have the Roman Catholics, you have the Protestants, you have the Anglicans, but all of them, the Christian religion in Europe is the biggest thing.
yeah.
Britain may have the biggest navy, France may have the biggest army, Russia might have the biggest everything, but they can't get their shit together.
Well, I was gonna say Germany. Was another big one.
Germany, Prussia, all of these places have their strengths and everything, but they are all tied together under the same religious
Yeah,
backgrounds. And
yeah,
all of those religious backgrounds are based on the idea that the Christian God is omnipotent and the Christian God created everything. And when you get to a place like the Americas and you have cities and people who don't do the Jesus thing and all of this stuff,
yeah,
you know, you how do you quantify that? Well, the way to quantify that is to steal it or
yeah.
give it to anybody else. I need you to lay down over there. Lay down. I do not want to play. I do not want to do anything. You are on the list of bad. Lay down.
But yeah. Well,
Seriously, anybody want a puppy?
but
He
well, and
eats
like,
chickens.
yeah. But well, like in the same thing, talking about Egyptians, because like Egyptians and Phoenicians and then Hindus, quote unquote, or specifically Aryans, are usually the exception to the rule whenever alternate cultures are mentioned for building these things. But there's an important thing that people need to realize when seeing these cultures were still associated as being somehow white. whenever you say, oh,
Hmm.
Hindus or Aryans built, say, the Mississippian mounds like Cahokia or Serpent Mound or what have you, they're not talking about, you know, India Indians. They're talking about the 1800s and 1900s view of Aryans, which was an ancient quote unquote white civilization that set itself up in the Indus Valley.
Yeah.
And Hitler
And
and other anti-Semitic people, such as Baron Ungern von Sternberg, a Russian warlord who conquered
I'm
Mongolia.
sorry. What did you just choke on? What?
Uh,
I
Baron
don't
Ungern,
need to. I'm
yeah,
making a joke. Sorry.
but yeah, like a Russian warlord who conquered Mongolia, and was a big believer in the Aryan myth and things like that. It's like people, anti-Semitic people, racist, your white European people were the who believed that they were descended from this ancient white civilization.
These are also the same people that believe the Aryans came from Angarta, which
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
hole in the center of the planet
yeah.
where they speak. What do you think they speak in the center of the earth?
I don't know. I forgot what
Korean.
Korean. Korean.
I'm sorry, dad joke. I saw that
Yeah,
yesterday and I was like, oh, that is too good.
yeah, but it's like exactly, but like, and that's the thing, you
Core.
know. Yeah, cool. I got it. But
Sorry.
but that's the thing, you know. Nothing says or is doing is new at
No.
all. It's completely based on Ignatius Donnelly's theories and, you know, by proxy the mound builder myth that Ignatius Donnelly's theories are based
There
on.
is a slight change. He
Yeah,
has admittedly made a slight change in
yeah,
what he's saying to
uh-huh,
avoid 100% plagiarism,
yeah,
which is the idea of a culture that
yeah,
is not in the Americas, but is
mhm,
globe spanning.
yeah,
And that he's given all of the things. He's not saying necessarily that they're Christian. He's not saying they're necessarily white, but man, he's lining every single
mhm,
pin on that particular bowling alley to
yeah.
say that. And then he makes it all conveniently go away at 12,000 years ago, which is a very stupid number. I'm just going to say that as an archaeologist. It's a fucking stupid number
Well,
to
and that's
suddenly
yeah,
say
yeah,
it ended here and then humans suddenly picked up stuff. He's basing it off of Göbekli Tepe.
yeah.
Now, I don't know how many times have I said that Göbekli Tepe is not a site like Graham Hancock is presenting it as.
No, and it's not unique.
Nope.
It's for one thing. Now he's admitted this in recent years, but for one thing, many archaeologists point out, hey, it's like hey, Göbekli Tepe is very much holds the same cultural motifs of the Naftufian cultures. You
Yeah.
know, the Neolithic and late Paleolithic Naftufian cultures of the Levant. You know, Iraq,
Yeah.
uh, Israel,
It
etc.
reflects the peoples
Yeah,
that were there that have
yeah,
archaeological evidence elsewhere in the region. What?
yeah.
No.
Well,
No.
one of my favorite one of my
Not even
things because
possible.
yeah, and one of my favorite things is like he bases a lot. You know, he bases his 12,000 number off of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. Now, let me preface this: the Younger Dryas event is not anything that is even remotely debated by archaeologists for the most part. There are some who still debate it, but they're in the minority. What the issue is the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which is the idea that a comet or a meteor smacked down at the end of the last ice age. For the one thing, last ice age is a misnomer. We're technically in an
We're
ice
not. We're
age
still in
now.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
The
last
last glacial
glacial
maximum.
maximum. Yeah, but the idea is that this meteor smacked into it and caused climate change and all this other stuff, and you know, and it's like, and yes, the climate change did happen, and also worldwide flooding, which again did happen, but like the papers say the flooding was what was it, like 200 meters over like 500 years. So it's like, you know,
So did you
like
did you
yeah,
watch Milo's thing on this?
yeah, and yeah, which one? Because I watched
Mini
Milo
Minuteman
Mini
did a
Minuteman, yeah,
fantastic. For those of
yeah,
you who haven't
Yeah.
who are listening or watching who haven't heard of Milo,
Yeah.
Mini Minuteman.
Yeah.
He has done a fantastic job
Yeah.
on tearing down Graham Hancock
Yeah.
to the point where apparently one of the publishers for Graham Hancock or something wrote a hit piece on him, which is like that's hot. That's what did Bill the Butcher and Gangs of New York say? That's a
Yeah.
periodical of note.
Yeah,
That's a headline you
exactly.
could be proud of. Ghouls, you know. So,
Yeah.
but the point is Milo went over it very
Yeah.
detailed.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's right. The end of the Dryas, the Younger Dryas, saw flooding, saw change, but it was like it saw half an inch of sea rise a
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
over 600 to 700 years or some
Yeah.
ridiculous thing. So you're seeing, I mean, I'm sorry, if your civilization does not pick up and move
Yeah.
from encroaching floodwaters at the speed of less of a snail in reverse, I'm sorry. If
Yeah.
it does not figure out to move over the course of 700 years, I'm sorry, you don't get to be a civilization anymore. That's just fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, did I account for that? No,
Yeah.
no. You know,
And and the thing is, it would be like even then
even
it would
if
be even if well for one thing it'd be one thing if it was just Milo Mini Minuteman who said this, but like so many archaeologists pointed this out when this came out. Stefan Milo did it, uh, and he did a video on it. I did three videos that were excruciating and 2 hours long, where I did it point by point and showed the academic papers that disproved his point. See here, and
you're
even
getting
not
into that book learning, you're getting
yeah,
into that witchcraft and book learning.
yeah, essentially. But it's not even just that. There was also historians who did it. There was like ancient history uh, on YouTube who did it. Like so many people pointed this out. Like it because yeah, it was like 200 meters over 5 to 700 years. Like no, okay, that's not much. But of course, Graham Hancock's cronies like Randall Carlson, who and I'll come back to this because this is also connected to Graham Hancock and his other crony Scott Wolters. Where Randall Carlson claiming to be for years to be a geologist, and then of course people called his universities that he claimed to have his degree from, and they had never heard of him. But like
Yeah.
Randall Carlson, like because like in Ancient Apocalypse, he said it was like at the end of the last episode of season one, he said the causing of the flooding, like for example, the Scablands in Oregon and Idaho, was
Have
more
nothing to do
water.
with the lake that is where
Yeah,
I live.
yeah, but he said it was caused by more water than all of the rivers and lakes in the world combined, and I'm just like, then how does anything still exist at that point?
So
Like
in Glacial Lake, Missoula,
yeah,
which is where he's talking about,
yeah.
I'm sorry, was the size of the Great Lakes, I think,
It was
or
yeah,
Lake Superior, not
yeah,
just not the Great Lakes, just Lake Superior
yeah,
in volume,
yeah.
and it happened multiple times,
Hmm.
and that's proven by the geology and the geography of this region,
Yeah,
without going even to the Scablands. And
yeah,
before a critic says, "Well, how do you know that?" I live here.
yeah,
It's literally been part of my job
yeah,
to acknowledge this. I worked on sites when they were first recorded in the 1960s,
yeah.
and on the site forms, it says one of the most provocative things that I ever saw on an old site form. And I actually started really taking notes and positions trying to establish this. Every single quarry site that I worked on when I worked for the
Hmm.
BLM was
Yeah,
above the shoreline of the lake. So you would have been able to look down on the lake and still harvest stone and
yeah,
still do hunting. And the Salish have an oral
yeah,
history about the water leaving.
yeah,
Wow. What does that sound like? A lake draining, perhaps? Oh no.
yeah. I know. It's like trying to argue with yeah. Well, and
Did you
that's
ever
yeah.
did you ever read Clive Cussler?
I believe so, but it's been a while.
So Clive Cussler is an author. He's passed now, but
Yeah,
he's an action guy.
Yeah, yeah,
And he
yeah.
had a hero character who had a plucky sidekick. The movie Sahara with Matthew McConaughey is
Yeah,
basically what that
yeah.
is.
Yeah,
The
I remember
first,
that.
the first book I ever read was a very provocative title, Atlantis Found.
Yeah. Oh, fuck.
Now, Clive Cussler wrote fake action,
Yeah,
and he was very good. And every single one of his books, I will admit that I very much appreciated, had something to do with history, even
yeah,
if it was fake history. And in this case, it was Atlantis.
yeah,
And you can tell who he read. He read Plato
yeah,
and he read Graham Hancock
of course.
because in his book he described this globe spanning civilization that
Yeah,
was all on the coastlines, all on the coastline.
yeah,
And the Younger Dryas was not a comet, or was a comet that hit the planet, hit the ocean, sometime hit in the Atlantic, I guess. And the resulting tsunamis, of course, destroyed everything on the coastlines, decimated this civilization. All of the stuff that you can attribute to the Atlantis myths or the destruction of Santorini or
yeah,
Helike,
yeah,
the Greek city of Helike.
yeah,
So you have this very basic apocalypse theory that is very Graham Hancock, and it's great,
yeah,
except for the fact that the whole reason it's even known about is distinctly not cultures that are recognized and recorded today, material culture belonging to distinctly not them
yeah,
was discovered in these forms of these like time capsule caves located all over the world, and it is very fanciful and everything like that. But one of the things that Cussler did, which is
mhm,
in a reflection of Hancock,
yeah,
is that every single thing that they talk about, having their cities being destroyed on the coastlines or whatever, they do not in any way, shape, or form talk about the infrastructure that would have supported those cities
yeah,
further inland. You're
yeah.
not growing acres and acres and acres of corn in New York City,
No.
but you are 100 miles, 200, 400, 500, 600, 700 miles away in villages and smaller cities and towns and all of this stuff, and then the network of infrastructure to get it there by the roads and everything. You could wipe the East Coast off the map right now,
Yeah,
inland 100 miles, and I guarantee you the infrastructure that supports all of the East Coast cities would still exist
yeah,
and be present. So even if you did wipe it off the map completely, let's talk Graham Hancock vacuumed every single absolute thing up.
yeah,
You could have an empty swath of nothing,
yeah,
but you would have every single road and rail line and canal and power corridor and everything walk right to that imaginary line of destruction and end.
yeah,
And it's all associated with something that had to be in that dead zone. So what was it? That
yeah,
would be more evidence than Graham Hancock has provided for any of his stuff.
yeah.
And
Well, it's
that's the
like,
kind of
yeah,
questions that we ask. Hey, here's your civilization that's globe spanning. How did it get there?
yeah,
How long did it take to grow that big? What are the resources they use? What is their technology? I'm sorry, you cannot have. I am pretty sure it is scientifically impossible to have a massive civilization that only operates in the mile of space between the ocean and the end of that magical mile.
yeah. Well, like, not only that, underwater archaeology. There are plenty of Clovis and pre-Clovis sites that have been found underwater. Not even just pre-Clovis sites. There was a city in India that was an early medieval city that
Yeah.
do that in a similar way to, like, say, Venice. Is right
Was
now.
built in the wrong spot and sank.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and they found it, or any number of, like, there's the Umbarun shipwreck, the Mongol fleet,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's any
Port
number.
Royal,
Yeah, Port Royal.
Alexandria,
Yeah,
all of these
exactly.
places that have suffered some sort of seismic event that
Yeah,
admittedly is a disaster, an apocalyptic time, but the reasons for it, like Port Royal or
yeah,
Alexandria in Egypt, is the same reason why the earthquake in 1903 in San Francisco was so
yeah,
terrific, or terrifying, is because all of the ground was geologically unstable. You could build buildings on it all for 1,000 years and it wouldn't do anything. But an earthquake from beneath
Yeah.
turned it to liquid and it
Yeah.
sank or it
Yeah.
collapsed into the ocean. And yes, you have things of destruction and you have thousands upon thousands of people die and now these cities are underwater, but how they're 50 feet.
Yeah.
You can see them from the fishing boat. You don't
Yeah.
even have to get your feet wet.
Yeah.
And we're able to
Exactly.
dive down and swim and find all of these things. There have been watches from the 1600s found in Port Royal,
Yeah.
stopped immediately when they're inundated in the water and shows exactly when the earthquake happened.
Yeah. Exactly.
Crazy stuff. You mean to tell me that a civilization that took possibly thousands of years to grow did
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
leave anything like that? So strange.
Exactly. Well, and this brings us back to uh in a lot of
Yeah,
ways
sorry everybody,
to
we tangent.
no, this is connecting to Graham Hancock, but it's all in his ideas. But it also connects us back to the ancient aliens thing, where you bring up how they keep moving the goalpost and things like that. Graham Hancock, he did that,
Moves the
and
goalpost.
his best example in his debate with archaeologist Flint Dibble, which I and Morgan here have gone on record, and a lot of other archaeologists have gone on record on how we don't like that debate. However, Flint
Stink.
Dibble called one. Flint Dibble called out these things like he's like, "Hey, where's the agriculture and underwater archaeology?" And at the end of it, Graham Hancock, he was like, "You're right. Archaeologists haven't found evidence of the ancient civilization that I'm talking about where they have looked," which is just like, well, no shit. Of course, like, so like you're moving the goalpost again. So
Except,
yeah, except
except
yeah,
he's saying it
yeah.
exists in all the places we have.
they Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then he's like, when brought up underwater archaeology, he's like, "Oh, I'm not talking about the northern hemisphere because that would have been too cold. I'm talking about the southern hemisphere." And then of course I and other archaeologists pointed out, it's like, "Hey, we have underwater archaeology from those regions too." So again, like Australia, for
You mean the
example. So
southern
yeah,
hemisphere where it's
yeah,
so nice that people recreationally fucking
yeah,
scuba dive
yeah,
all year round?
yeah,
What?
exactly. Well, and it's
You
just
know,
like, yeah,
if
it,
Graham Hancock was going to stick to his own guns and move the goalposts like that, like he did,
yeah,
he should not be looking at a single archaeological site in his
period,
TV shows, period.
period, yeah.
Because all of the places he's looking and making the claim that we don't look at, the whole reason he knows about them
It's
is
because we
because of
looked at them. Yeah.
archaeologists.
Yeah.
If archaeology is the dog, Graham Hancock is the tick.
Yeah. Well, it's like one
He
of
would
his
be out of a
episodes. Yeah.
job if
Yeah,
we didn't
exactly.
exist. And here he is picking a fight with us.
Yep. Well, one of the sites he mentioned in his Ancient Apocalypse series, Poverty Point, which is one of the most studied mound sites in North America. On my bookshelf up here, I have a book about Poverty Point.
Hold that nonsense, sir.
Yeah.
This is a television show. We're not
Yeah.
marketing that book learning.
Yeah, clearly, yeah, exactly. But that's the whole point. And so that's like, and this is now, full disclosure, while this is going to be the last that really any archaeologist talks about it, talks about the Keanu part, because now we know it's just a minute of nothing. You know,
Well, you know what? Let's take a book. Let's take a page out of Graham Hancock's book.
yeah, yeah,
Let's not say that yet, because honestly, we don't know
and that's
until we
fair.
watch the entire thing,
Which
and
is
that's
what we're
good
gonna do.
science.
Yeah, which is what I was about to say. Full disclosure, we have plans for the next day after this video is recorded. Not when it airs because I've got to like upload all the other videos because I got lazy. Well, I can't say I got lazy on that. I wasn't able to do that because my computer crapped out. But like the day after this video is recorded, Morgan
Yeah,
here
we're
and
gonna
I
watch
and a
some of the
couple,
videos.
yeah, we're gonna
But
watch some of the episodes and we're going to to talk about that. But like it's
look, what
so
I just did
yeah,
is I acknowledge that, hey, here's
we
a
don't know.
statement we've made,
Yeah,
but we better pull back, reconsider, and factor in that no, we haven't seen all the episodes yet. So
Yeah.
maybe we should
Yeah.
be very happy. We should be very
Yeah. Yeah.
we
And
should do some of that self-criticism that Graham Hancock says we don't do.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
exactly. And also, full disclosure, we're not going to watch all the episodes, like, because, oh, fuck. Last time I did that, I really wished I had a railroad
We
spike
we
or a
we love it. We
lobotomy.
love ourselves far
Yeah,
too much. That it's
yeah.
it's right up there with the, don't stab yourself in the foot.
Well, yeah, yeah,
Don't
because, like,
touch a hot stove.
yeah, the entire time I was watching every single one of the episodes of the first season, I really wish that somebody with a lobotomy spike would be like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" But yeah, exactly. So this is, and this is something that I and other archaeologists in the previous videos, like Professor Howard Williams, Archeo Soup, uh, Archaeochica, Melissa in Denial, etc. We've all talked about. And the thing is, it's important to call these things out. However,
So
it's
much.
also important to remember, we have more important things to worry about, uh, such as the looting epidemic in the U.S. that keeps,
Well,
happening.
yeah, but
Yeah,
see, here's the thing:
but
is
that's
that the
caused
people
by
who
Graham Hancock.
believe in
Yeah,
Graham Hancock and buy
yep,
his shit are it's a Venn diagram between those
yeah.
people and those who do site
Look,
looting.
yep, and that's exactly my
It
point.
is it is. I mean, I have driven trucks with
Yeah,
tires more out of round than that particular Venn diagram.
yeah,
The
exactly.
misinformation stuff on a whole, not
Yeah,
just archaeology, on a whole, I feel like the professionals in those fields need to smack down with absolute prejudice.
yeah,
I mean, you've seen the news.
yeah,
The shit that's on this app. Don't believe FEMA. FEMA's going to come take your stuff. Buy this book. Uh
yeah,
didn't the governor of North Carolina just authorize uh police and National Guard protection
yep,
because of militias out hunting FEMA, because
yep,
of all of these people who think FEMA's coming to take their stuff,
yeah,
because of bullshit started on social media.
yeah. And so yeah, so exactly. So it's like we need to call it out. Um, but like I said, there's also unfortunately other things we also have to call out that is connected to it, like looting, but also, things
Well, if we
like
call out something like Graham Hancock shit
yeah,
and we pinion that to the door,
yeah,
maybe this push will actually land real archaeology television,
yeah,
real real archaeology in the media.
yeah,
Because the thing is that archaeology is getting known about because of Graham Hancock,
mm-hmm,
good or bad,
mm-hmm.
and that's what sells is the mystery and the drama and the bullshit. And in this country, that's what sells because it's capitalism and they want to sell you Ford F-150s and Cheetos.
Yeah,
Boy, if we start slapping back
yeah,
and really showing that no, this is fucking serious, hey, maybe we'll get on that platform in a way that actually is educational.
yeah,
And sure, present it as something that's not so much a professor in tweed and a lot more,
yeah,
you know, dare I say it, Indiana Jones. People think of archaeology and think of Indiana Jones. Well, Indiana Jones is not an archaeologist to them. He's an action hero.
yeah. Well, and
And
yeah,
people pay attention to it and people get interested in it because of. Obviously, Indiana Jones is not the way to go, but that grab of attention and that retention of that attention is the way to go.
yeah. Well, and I think so, yeah, and I agree. But like here's I'm gonna slightly disagree on that because one, I think personally, I think I'm personally gonna, not always, but a lot of times from now on, I'm gonna leave the pushing back against things like ancient aliens and Graham Hancock to people like Frederick, digging up ancient aliens and Milo Mini Minuteman. But also, I think another way we can combat Graham Hancock and also the looting epidemic in the United States, which is helped by Graham Hancock's ideas, but also is a whole nother beast on its own. Uh, Public archaeology, public outreach, where like
Mm-hmm.
like I do and other archaeologists do, like going to schools and uh, um,
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, and Boy Scout things, or also like I know the site archaeologist for a historic site here on the coast of Georgia, uh, the Fort Frederica, which is like one of the fort that was founded by the guy who founded the colony of Georgia. They have field trips where the kids from like the fourth to the eighth grade can come and actually do actual archaeological excavations, and they have summer camps for kids to also do that in greater depth. So I think things like those may be the better way to combat this, because as we've seen, like you and I have talked at length on TikTok and YouTube and other things about Graham Hancock. So has Mini Minuteman, so has Stephen Milo, so has Archaeosoup Howard Williams, so has Frederick digging up ancient aliens. So I think, I think we're kind of hitting a wall to where we've said not necessarily all that can be said. And I think doing things like this, and also like we're going to do tomorrow, and debunking his ancient aliens, I think those are important. But I also think, and this is something that I discussed with Howard Williams and Archaeosoup when we all sort of came to the same conclusion, pulling, not necessarily pulling completely back, but like some archaeologists pulling back a little bit and focusing on things like, say, the looting of archaeological sites in the Middle East by groups like ISIS, and also, the looting of archaeological sites here in the U.S., focusing on those and then leaving people like Stephen Milo and Milo Mini and Frederick digging up ancient aliens to handle the to handle the work of debunking, Graham Hancock
Well,
and such, might
however
be the
you
better
spread
way to
out the
go.
workload,
Yeah,
it all
exactly.
needs to
Yeah.
be addressed. But I think
Yeah.
there also needs to be we need to put a lot of this stuff right in the hands of the people who caused it,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is Graham Hancock, which is
Yeah.
highlighting the colonial and
Yeah.
racially driven origins of his stuff,
Yeah.
pointing out that his complete dismissal of indigenous populations and their histories and their achievements is opening it up for people of an unsavory political background
Mm-hmm.
or religiously driven or ethnically driven background to justify their actions.
Yeah.
This is a if you tell people this reminds me of a story that was a story when I was a
Yeah.
kid. you know
Yeah.
this happened 30 years ago, 30 something years ago, 30 something years ago. Is the guy who is a rafting guide
Yeah.
told the people he was guiding on this trip that you can eat cattail roots,
Yeah.
and he said go out and get some cattail roots. And the
Mm-hmm.
people that did pulled the wrong cattails and killed half the people in the camp
Oh wow.
because they were
Yeah.
poisonous.
Yeah.
That guy got in trouble. Why?
Yeah.
Well, he said technically a thing that was right.
Yeah.
Technically, but he left out details. He didn't educate people correctly. Somebody
Yeah.
went off and did their own thing and assumed they were able to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
as a result, people got sick, people died. Whether or
Yeah.
not that story is true, I don't know. It's something that my dad told me. But
Yeah.
it's a great example of Graham Hancock can say this and be considered entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
which is also another thing that you can say people that's how they defend him, even though
Yeah.
Graham Hancock himself has bitched about being canceled and censored because the Society of American Archaeology wrote a letter saying, "Hey, everything
Yeah.
he's talked about is not backed up by archaeology, geology, history, all of this fucking science. The show should not be presented as a documentary."
Yeah.
And he gets up on his platform and he squawks about censorship and being canceled. Meanwhile, people who follow him are justifying his show as it's entertainment.
Yeah.
Pick a side.
Yeah. Exactly.
Either present it as a show and get called out for it and have to justify and have to back up what you're saying, or it's entertainment.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Keanu Reeves is like nuts, is that people are like, you know, is Keanu Reeves is a big name and that's the only thing he's riding on in the show. Nobody has looked at
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves' movie and gone, "Oh, that's real life."
Yeah.
John Wick
Espe-
might be a how-to guide if somebody fucks with your car and your dog, but it's not real life.
Yeah,
You know,
well, or no, or I would argue the better example is speed. You know, if this car goes it goes below 55 miles an hour in, downtown Los Angeles, that'd be like me saying that, like, oh, if this car, like, that would make more sense, like, in Atlanta, where everyone speeds they're
well,
like they're a moonshiner. But, like, the idea is, like, it's exactly the same thing. It's like, Graham Hancock is that's all it is he's just relying on. Yeah.
Graham Hancock is an absolute grifter.
Yeah, he is. He's a grifter. Like,
Um,
yeah, he's a snake
the
oil
most
salesman.
infuriating way to
Yeah.
say it
Yeah.
is to point out the very basic details of who grifters go after,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is the ignorant, the uneducated, the dispossessed, the poor,
Yeah.
you know, the people who are outsiders in whatever situation. That's
Yeah.
who the grift, that's who the snake oil salesman always went after, always did.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Graham Hancock is not talking to academics. He's not
No.
talking to professionals. He's not talking to book learned people.
No.
He's talking to people who have a chip in some other direction.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that those people are bad people. I'm going to say they are absolutely be taken advantage of by a guy who's got a grift going
Yeah.
and who
They're being.
also has no intention on being responsible for what his grift does.
No. Yeah,
You know,
he's the guy who's coming up in the 1800s, who's coming up to the person with tuberculosis and with a vial of vaguely reddish brown liquid and saying, "Here, this will help you. This thing cures anything from cancer to hurricanes," and then, sells it to you for a ridiculous,
hurricanes.
yeah, for a ridiculous price, and then proceeds to leave with the money as the person with tuberculosis drinks the stuff and still slowly dies from a horrible bloody lung death, because all he was given was, like, Kool-Aid or
Kool-Aid,
turpentine or
yeah.
so.
So you
Yeah.
know who Graham Hancock is? Graham Hancock is Sylvester McMonkey McBean.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
For those of you who don't remember the Dr. Seuss story,
Yeah.
Nietzsche's.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
My name
And
is Sylvester McMonkey McBean.
yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a
1973, huh?
yeah.
Wild.
And I think that's a good place to end our first subject.
Ah,
Because I think that's a very good place, because
now
that's
that we're hackles up and angry,
yeah.
right?
Well, it's going to be
What the
more.
takeaway should be is that Graham Hancock's a piece of shit. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Hancock's a piece of shit, and Keanu Reeves just took a paycheck, and now, because he took a paycheck, his mere presence there is going to legitimize things. Um, but the second subject I want to cover is one that in some ways is even more infuriating. So, and this is something that I've talked about again in the previous videos in this series, and is one of the main reasons I wanted to do this short mini series. Is there was recently an article that was published in the Atlantic by a historian, but that directly affects people like me and Morgan and anyone who's an archaeologist or a historian who has a social media on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, etc. This article was published by a historian by the name of Arash Azizi, and in this article, he made it very clear that, in his opinion, public archaeology and public history on TikTok, podcasts, YouTube, Twitch, whatever, was a clear and present danger. Now, at first,
Why?
hang on, I'll get to that. Now, at first, I didn't disagree with his article, and a lot of people didn't, because it says in there that social media, things like that, can allow for, like, pseudoscientists and neo Nazis and such to, spread misinformation. And at first, if it stayed that way, I wouldn't disagree. However, in the article, he specifically points out history podcasters and TikTokers and YouTubers and such, and the ones he points out were predominantly historians and archaeologists who were either women or people of color or both.
Oh, so he's sexist and
Yeah,
racist.
and
Oh, very cool.
the
His
kicker
name is
here.
Azizi, right?
Yeah, Rush is easy. Hang on.
All
And the
right, cool.
kicker is, well, for one, he named a couple of our mutuals in the article who have now, I've talked with a few of our other mutuals, and they've, I'm not going to mention their names, but they were either the ones who were called out and have now sort of pulled back from social media because they were being harassed, stalked, and doxxed, um, or people who know who are our mutuals, and they've told me like, hey, the reason you're not seeing XYZ on here anymore is because of this. And then the kicker,
Know this.
after he caused all this damage, he had the gall to go on a Joe Rogan, Andrew Tate esque fucking podcast to talk about history. So
So,
you
so this
said yeah,
guy
yeah,
essentially
yeah. He
Azizi, you
he
say.
he threw everyone else. He threw women historians and archaeologists under the bus who were on TikTok, YouTube, doing podcasts, etc., and basically said, "Fuck them. They're
Well, I
doing
didn't hear
this."
about this article, but I might have to say something.
Yeah, but they spread misinformation, is what he said. And then he turned around and did the exact same thing. He was criticizing these people for. Now, I made a
I'm
video
sorry, did
response.
he go on an Andrew Tate show and throw himself in with sex traffickers and rapists?
It wasn't an Andrew
Interesting.
Tate. It wasn't an Andrew Tate show, but it was like of
Oh,
that
it was
same
a
band. It was of that same style, you know. And
dick.
and I made a video response to him. I was like, "Hey, so what happened to podcast historians are wrong and a clear and present danger?" Because he was arguing for keeping traditional publications, air quotes, like books and articles, is the main way to spread history.
So
So
what it
I'm just
sounds
like,
like he
yeah,
did
is
was
he?
light
Yeah,
all of the red light district on fire except for
yeah.
his building.
Yeah, essentially. And it was like that was my whole point was like, hey, you said this, but you're
You
doing this.
fucking
So I was
poser.
like, and I called them out on it. I was like, hey, you are probably so either you have no one, you have no principles whatsoever, but two, it's very clear that you probably just meant when he said podcast historians and archaeologists were a clear and present threat, you meant specifically if they were women and people of color because like it's yeah, so that's yeah, that and so that's been one of the main subjects of this video of the series. So yeah, like, so what are your thoughts on that, Morgan, on on public history specifically, and public archaeology on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, etc., being a quote clear and present danger?
That is the stupidest fucking thing I have ever fucking heard.
Yeah, that's my thought. Yeah,
No, 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 because you
yeah,
know what? If this was in the 1970s, you
yeah,
know what we would be operating on?
yeah,
Fucking TV,
yeah.
the radio.
Mm-hmm.
If it was before that, it would be the radio and the newspapers. If it was before that, it would be the newspapers that happen to have woodcuts or
Yeah,
pictures and
yeah,
the little dispatches. See, one of the things that we do,
yeah,
and this is why you do have to take with a grain of salt stuff you hear on the internet because anybody can do this.
yeah,
But why, when someone like, pardon me, like you or me or any of the
yeah,
others who are actual professionals in this field say, hey, this is where our research is coming from. Here's our sources. We've cited our information. That's a
yeah,
big difference than what's his name? Zeba,
yeah,
Philip fucking Zeba, or Aiden Mathis, who Aiden Mathis claims to be getting his master's degree in archaeology or
yeah,
history. And he's an acolyte of Graham Hancock.
yeah,
He's also somebody who absolutely has thrown dismissal and disdain to indigenous creators, women, you know, uh, trans,
yeah,
whoever, speak
yeah.
up against him for his stuff. He is flat said, piss off. I can do what I want.
Well, and he has
And
multiple history degrees, which is something I want to get into in a little bit later. But
well, congratulations. You can have a
yeah,
lot of degrees. I know a
yeah,
lot of, one of my best friends
yeah,
is an archaeologist
yeah,
in her degree.
yeah,
She never went into the field.
yeah,
She she did the field school, she did the work, she got her degree in it. You know what she does? She's a real
What?
estate agent.
Yeah.
She's a real estate agent and she's a mom, and she is fantastic in it. And if I could make a portion of the money that she makes doing what she does, that
Yeah.
would cure a bunch of my problems. But the
Yeah.
point is that she has the degree. She's not an archaeologist.
Yeah.
You can have a degree in something and not be that thing. I
Yeah.
mean, I've got a pilot's license, not a pilot. I've got a
Yeah.
pilot's license.
Yeah.
So, as for the idea that this is no, because if he's going to say, if this is easy guy is going to say that public archaeology and historians on and archaeologists on podcasts and social media and all this stuff are bad, every single thing that is talked about
Hmm.
on social media, on podcasts, on YouTube, whatever, is bad.
Yeah.
Because you tell me what the difference is
Yeah.
between an archaeologist like me coming on and saying, hey, you know, this site was discovered here. This is what they found at the site. This is how me, an archaeologist, would go about doing this. And this is the results of our findings. What is the difference between me saying that and you flip the channel on YouTube and it's one of my favorite guys, uh, Dalton from Pole Barn Garage, telling you how to do. I just was watching his show, telling you
Yeah.
how to do block sanding and primer and body filler to repair the damaged panels on a 1964 Pontiac Bonneville.
Yeah.
What is the difference other than profession?
Yeah.
What is the difference? You still have somebody who is educating. You still have somebody who is educating. Now, I can do what I do, and someone who teaches archaeology at Harvard can be like, that guy's a fucking hack. Because I work for the government. I'm a federal archaeologist on a forest. I do cultural resource management. You know, Dalton works in his garage. He's a
Yeah.
shade tree mechanic. Other professionals in the fields, our fields might have some sort of criticism,
Yeah.
might have some sort of thing to say about it. But where are they coming from? They're coming from another professional in that field,
Hmm.
albeit maybe a different focus, but they're still from that field.
Yeah.
So the concept of someone making the statement that, oh, this is a danger. This is not a danger. This is a you're doing crap work. And that's a big difference. The fact that Azizi said all this stuff, wrote this article, says all this stuff's a danger, and then immediately cashes in on the vacancy. And I'm sorry, forgive me if this sounds vaguely racist, but someone with the last name of Azizi, having not any idea who this person is, this sounds like somebody who is from the Middle East,
Yep.
Central
Oh, yeah.
Asia, India.
I believe he's Turkish, actually.
Oh, okay, fine, fine.
Yeah. No, you're right,
Dusty
though. Yeah.
skinned,
Yeah.
possibly Muslim, all of these markers that
Yeah.
people would judge him on.
Yeah.
All of these markers that, because of associated things with that region of the world or people of that skin tone or people at religious background being negative, he's going to not be taken as seriously because someone's going to go along and hear what he has to say and go, and keep in mind for everybody who's listening, please understand, I'm not feeling this way. I'm pointing out the issue
Yeah.
with it
Yeah. Yeah.
is that somebody could hear him speak and do what I just did, hear his last name and go, well, you're associated with this.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that you and I both have both have a difficulty with is when people tag us in the wildly
Yeah.
off base Afrocentric
Yeah.
pseudoscience and stuff that seeks to destroy and replace and co-opt
Yeah.
indigenous civilizations here. The moment we say, whoa, 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 absolutely not. There is no evidence showing this. There's all of these things.
Yeah.
Somebody is going to point out, you guys are white.
Yeah.
You're being racist.
Hmm.
So, I mean, there is there is situations where all of us get
Yeah.
taken down or judged upon, and that
Yeah.
thing is used to remove our legitimacy as speaking in this.
Yeah.
Azizi just removed, attempted to remove other competitors in the field, and then cashed in on the absolute thing that he just
Yep.
pointed out.
Oh yeah.
All it's not all archaeologists of color are incorrect and this is bad. It's everybody but me.
Yeah. That's essentially what it was.
That is almost sinister. That
It
is the
is.
character that Samuel L. Jackson played in Django.
Yeah.
That is that horrendous crap.
Hmm.
For him to say that, that is absolutely garbage.
Yeah.
Now, getting back, because I'm sorry, that kind of fired me up a little bit. Getting back to the idea that what we do is a danger. I'm sorry, what we do is the only thing that 95% of the population anymore is going to hear.
Yeah.
Apparently, people are using TikTok as a first source.
Yeah.
People are using TikTok as a first source to find sources. Like Wikipedia. Don't use
Yeah.
Wikipedia as a source, but Wikipedia is a source for sources.
Yeah.
That is incredible to me, one. But two, because of shows like Graham Hancock's,
Yeah.
because of shows like Scott Wolter
Yeah.
and the fucking Oak Island and shit like that,
Mhm.
actual archaeology, actual history, actual geography and geology and stuff is not getting out there in a way that is easily consumable to the masses.
No.
It's not. The fact that, I mean, it gets on YouTube and it gets on TikTok and it gets on all of these other avenues that we're utilizing. This is consumable media.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is fantastic media. Half the time I reach out or people ask me, what do you recommend? What
Yeah.
do you, as a professional in the field of archaeology, what would you recommend for me to read, for me to listen to, for me to watch? Well, and I'll
Yeah.
tell them, there's not a lot of good archaeology TV out there. Time
Nope.
Team, the reruns of Time Team from the BBC in England are about as close to real archaeology as you're going to get.
Yeah.
Admittedly, they are chopped up and cut up for time on the TV show.
Hmm.
I mean, you can't fault that,
No.
but that's the closest you're going to get to real archaeology. But
Yeah.
Paul Cooper, who does Fall of Civilizations podcast, he comes out with a new episode every couple months.
Yeah.
Dan Carlin might take a year to put out an episode. But his history podcasts, and he's not a historian. That's the thing that I love about him is like he's not a historian, he's a fan of history. And God, if Graham Hancock figured out how to do what Dan Carlin has done, because Dan
Yeah.
Carlin is not a historian, he's a journalist.
Yeah.
He's teaching. He is
Yeah.
presenting information. He's teaching from a curriculum, but he is presenting it in a way that is so amazingly good that I will listen to his stuff over and over again before I listen to somebody else who's talking about a new topic because of the way he presents, I mean, small things, and this might just be my
Mm.
autism going in where the only person I want to hear talk is him because I'm comfortable with his voice or whatever it is. The point is though, is that there is a lot more of this based in education,
Yeah.
not buying into the bullshit, not throwing the conspiracy shit out there as part of the oh, you got to get people really interested in.
Yeah.
There is actual educational stuff being presented via podcast, via YouTube, via TikTok.
Yeah.
Even if TikTok is just the catalyst to go to the YouTube and go to the podcast.
Mm.
That is the media that is more easily uh, consumable. You
Yeah.
know, I drive when I'm in the woods, when I'm in the field truck, I might drive 2 hours on a road that is absolute garbage to get to the site that I'm working on. I'm listening to an audiobook. I'm listening to a podcast.
Yep.
I'm learning as I go. That is easy to consume. That's a lot easier to consume than a book. And it also, for those people who don't have big living spaces, oh, good. You don't have to have a giant book. So that is a tool. that,
Yeah.
if used correctly, is phenomenal. It's
Hmm.
also a tool, if it's used incorrectly, is going to destroy the planet. Because, what was a great tool for communicating with people during the Depression? The radio.
Yep.
FDR doing his fireside chats, getting on the radio, keeping hope in the country, doing all this stuff. You know who also was using the radio in the 1930s?
The
Fucking
Nazis.
Hitler.
Yeah.
So you have the like there is the dichotomy between good and evil. Here's the extremes, good and bad. This tech that we're using right now can be
Hmm.
good, can be bad. It has nothing to do with necessarily the people doing it.
Yeah.
The intent behind it, yes. You know, the Azizi's attempt to push this out and then immediately try to use it again, that's hypocritical. And that
Yeah.
smacks of, I want attention and I wasn't getting it.
Yeah. Well, and on that same note, like the dichotomy, one of the things I brought up when this article came out, I'm like, okay, yes, social media can be used as a vehicle to spread misinformation, but you know what else can be used as a vehicle to spread misinformation? The things he was pushing for in that article, publishing books and academic articles and things like that.
Yeah.
Graham Hancock published what?
Publishes books.
Books. Eric von
Adolf Hitler
Daniken,
published a
yeah,
book.
Eric von Daniken and the
Published a book.
yeah, multiple books.
So
Ignatius
so the
Donnelly published books.
so
It's
what
like
you're saying is that
yeah,
it's not the media,
it's the use
it's
of
the intent behind it.
it. Yeah, exactly. It's the intent
Lo and
behind it.
behold.
Yeah, yep.
I think I just tried to say that, right?
Oh
In a
yeah, you
long,
said
roundabout,
exactly.
convoluted way.
You said
So
exactly that. Yeah, yeah,
so yeah, I think right now, with what we're talking about,
yeah,
absolute fly in the fucking soup is
yeah,
Aziz.
yeah,
There is that is dishonest shit.
yeah,
And if he ever hears this, good.
yeah. I
He
hope he
can, he can
does.
fucking pound sand.
Yeah,
I don't give a shit about his opinion.
yeah,
I mean, because he's lined himself up with this extreme.
yeah,
And this is not this isn't even like something like people who agree with Graham Hancock saying lining up with him
yeah,
versus people who agree with us lining up with us. It's not even that. This is a complete character assassination
yeah,
on a gender and ethnicities in a career field or several career fields
yeah.
in an attempt to get more attention.
Mm-hmm.
What malignant 10-year-old gimme bullshit is that?
Well, so and this actually I think leads me into my next point in this that I was going to bring up. So for one thing, Arash Azizi, he made it very clear in the article he's an academic historian.
Bullshit.
So yeah,
What
well,
does that mean?
and it's something that our mutual Tad Sturmer has been like fighting against on TikTok for a while. You know how academic historians can be in like big academic institutions can be up their own asses. But this is something that I've also brought up in the past few
Like
videos.
Hawass?
Yeah, Hawass. Yeah. Well,
Oh, look, an archaeologist who's kind of up his own ass.
well,
But at the same
but
time, Hawass is like the
yeah.
face of Egypt. So
Well, sort of. Sort of. But like what we're more talking about is so this is something I brought up in the previous videos, and it's something that I had sort of noticed myself, but it was unsure if anyone else had, and it seemed to be a pattern that everyone in these videos who was an archaeologist had noticed this. So, and even a historian. So there is an like this Arash Azizi's article is to me a symptom of something I've noticed for a while. There is an unnecessary, heavily one-sided rivalry between academic historians and basically
everybody else.
everybody else, especially archaeologists. So, like something that I and our other archaeologists, especially like here on the East Coast, and other historians like Ted Sturmer on the East Coast have noticed is that academic historians especially in relation to colonial sites like, say, Colonial Williamsburg or Jamestown and things like that. But it's not even just that. Also, Howard Williams, Archaeodeath and Archaeosoup noticed this with medievalists in Europe. There's this pattern of historians trying to claim that archaeology is unnecessary and that essentially it doesn't tell them anything that it knew that the historical documents had. Oh, that face tells me you've run into this before too. And I'll give you a
Who's
chance to say,
whoever is what listened just to a podcast from the podcast, not watching the show. I put my hands under my
yeah,
chin and I'm staring at Dane through the screen here with this longing, like, oh goody, tell me more. I'm gonna blow your mind when
yeah.
I start talking.
Oh yeah,
And now I'm not.
yeah,
Now I've got
yeah,
this sour face going because
yeah.
it's
It's exactly so that tells me you've run into this before too, but like it's this thing where it's like, oh, archaeology is not needed. It doesn't tell us anything different than what's had been in the historical documents. And for one thing, like I and other archaeologists here, like in relation to, like, say, uh in the coastal sites in Georgia, have run into this where people say this, where it's like, oh, we don't know, we don't need you, we have the historical documents from, say, fucking James
oh
Oglethorpe or
huh
whatever. Well, and
huh
there's a story, an archaeologist I personally know, he told me about this, where he's since retired, but like when he was in CRM, uh he worked for he was a professor at a university, and he went to this historic site um to do an excavation, and the historian there told him this exact same thing. Told him, like, oh, we don't need you because we already know
there's
all we
nothing
need to
here.
know from,
Yeah.
yeah. And then this archaeologist proceeded to find a pre-contact Native American site that none of the documents mentioned,
Yeah.
and he said,
Of
needs to
course.
say that guy no longer exists there. But I've run into this
Oh,
before,
so have
and
I.
we can even see this with, like, going back to Aidan Mathis, because he's got several history degrees and things like that. Yet he, every time
Yeah,
any
he got kicked
archaeologist,
out of a D&D game because two
yeah,
years after he blocked me and I blocked him, he's still
yeah,
bitching about the fact that I called
yeah,
him out for promoting white supremacy with his
yeah,
bullshit.
yeah, same here.
He
I
got
called
kicked
him
out of a
out.
D&D
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
He's that much of a
yeah. Well, like,
so
I called him out when he because he talked about, like, the Graham Hancock's thing and the flooding thing, and I made a stitch of his video saying, "Hey, that's not true. Here's what the actual paper does." And lo and behold, he bitched and moaned and everything. And I've run into that so many times with historians, and the thing is,
he
this,
is like the poster child for incel nerd. I'm
yeah.
just saying.
Well, and this is something that
I remember
archaeologists,
you, Aiden.
yeah, and this is something that archaeologists and historians have brought up before, because there's actually an article from 2001, I believe. I'd have to look at the exact date, but it's called "Always a Handmaiden, Never a Bride," and it's from Archaeology magazine, and it talks about, specifically in context of colonial Williamsburg and Jamestown, how um, historians will use the work of historical archaeologists, uh, while at the same time
Saying that we're
telling,
foolish, that we're not
yeah,
worth anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's the thing they're saying. It's like they'll be like, "Oh, we know all we need to know about the historical documents and things like that." Meanwhile, ignoring, you know, uh, how archaeology can help tell the story of, say, marginalized groups like Native Americans and enslaved African Americans and things like that. And all it's relegated to is, like, here's what all these documents say about this site, and, like, oh, look at this cool musket ball that these archaeologists found.
So
And
I
again, it's
have I
something
ever
that,
told you about my first monitoring job?
no, and we'll get to that just one second. Let me finish this one point. But it's something
Okay.
that Tad Sturmer has brought up, our mutual Tad Sturmer has brought up, with sites like Mount Vernon, or
Oh
things
yeah.
like,
Like they're
any Civil War
conveniently
site. Yeah,
ignoring the fact that the half
yeah,
the population at Mount Vernon was enslaved.
yeah.
Oh, that's just a
Or what?
convenient thing to ignore.
Yeah, and one experience I had personally at a plantation site here in Georgia, and I'll go ahead and say the name of the site because I don't give a shit. It's called Hoffel Broadfield Plantation, and I was just there
Awful,
on
awful.
vacation. Hoffel, and it's spare. It's I know it sounds weird, but it's in Darien County, Georgia. But, like, I
Sure.
was there
Hi,
on
Akaton,
vacation,
get your nose down.
but
What is this
I
bad dog behavior from you? Stop that.
I was
For the
just
sweet
there.
Jesus of it, man. Stop it.
but I was just there on a vacation with my family, and I was just asking,
Come on,
about the history of the
you need
site.
a cuddle.
And immediately, this woman who's a historian, or supposedly
Oh,
like one of the docents who's supposed to be teaching history, she immediately starts going into lost cause narrative stuff. And when I'm like, okay, but I'm an archaeologist and a historian myself, and so I start going over all of like what the
she went into
archaeology has
pro
said.
Confederacy shit.
Yeah, she tried to be like,
Okay,
oh
so
yeah, yeah,
walk the pro Confederacy lady out onto the porch
yeah,
and
exactly,
make her dance the gallows jig for that traitor
yeah,
bullshit.
yeah.
I'm sorry, that might seem extreme, but God
No, I
damn it,
agree.
they
Well,
lost.
and I told other
They Husky,
uh
they lost.
yeah, I told the other docents about it, and they were not too pleased with her. They at least to my face were like, "Thank you," and we'll address that. They're like, she's not supposed to be saying the stuff, but yeah,
Now I'm gonna come down to
yeah,
Georgia so I can go to that
yeah,
place. So if she's working,
yeah,
I could, because I had a granddad who had a little
yeah,
walk across the south towards the sea. Just
yeah,
he was on a trip. I don't know
yeah,
why.
exactly, yeah.
God damn.
Well,
Oh,
not only that, there's also one where I ran into in Tennessee where I was there for a project, and it was a day off, and so I visited the site, and I got into a conversation with one of the site historians, and when it became clear that I didn't buy into the lost cause, they got upset and quickly ended the conversation and had me pay. And
no,
so
no,
this is a pattern that we see all over the place, especially when it comes to colonial sites and Civil War sites, where it's like
so much.
archaeologists don't matter.
Well,
So,
so
and
so
you tell your experiences.
so well, do you want to hear my thought on the archaeology doesn't matter, or do you want to hear my experience first?
uh, Archaeology doesn't matter, and then we'll go to your
Okay,
experience. Yeah,
okay. So the idea that academics are throwing out there, and this is a thing that, yes, there is this back and forth between even academic archaeologists and professionals in the
yeah,
field, is this idea that you can be book smart but not street smart
yeah,
or field smart. And you can, you know, sure, they might know more about this particular site, except for the fact they've never been there.
yeah,
And the fact that the people who do the field work have, so they know more about the site because, well, hey, here's the variables that you can only learn about by being on the ground.
yeah.
But somebody asked me about this because in one of my lives, and I think it was along the lines of, who do you think is more important to documenting history, a historian or an archaeologist? And
Mhm.
I said, the historians write everything down. Archaeology shows that what they're writing down is true
Yeah,
because you can write down, hey, this site, this happened here. You know,
yeah,
From Cochrane flew his spaceship from Bozeman, Montana. Somebody's going to write that down in 40 years. You know,
yeah,
someone's going to write that down. That is going to be a written down thing. But if somebody goes back to that site and there's no signs of a fucking spaceship,
yeah.
that now brings that document into question.
Hmm.
So, you can write down anything. You can say this place was a very peaceful interaction between indigenous peoples and settlers. And if you find musket balls
Yeah,
and skeletons perforated with lead and buried haphazardly or scattered around in animal burrows because the bodies were scavenged,
yeah,
that's not illustrating a peaceful thing. And there are people who will genuinely get upset
yeah.
because what they have written is happy and rainbows and butterflies.
Hmm.
And the archaeology is showing, no, fucking people died here, you
Yeah,
know? So it's the other thing to be said about it, and this might cause some fights,
mhm.
is that not all historians are archaeologists,
Yeah,
but all archaeologists are historians.
exactly. Yeah,
Because we have to we have to do
yeah.
the history.
We have to look at the
How much
documents.
history
Yeah,
do I look at to write a report?
yep,
How much history do I look at to go, oh, I'm going to go do archaeology in these places?
yep,
I mean, they're needed. They're both needed. But
Yeah.
a historian cannot necessarily come and get hired into my job and do my job. Meanwhile,
Mhm.
I could go get hired into a historian position and do that
Yeah.
job. The
Yeah.
only difference is I'm not digging.
Mhm.
Now, my experience, my first monitoring job, and for those people who don't know in the audience, monitoring is where the archaeologist will stand next to the machine
Yep.
and watch the bucket dig because the surface has been cleared of artifacts. The
Yeah.
surveys have come back with nothing. The shovel tests, if they were done, have come back with nothing. But because of that unknown variable, let's have an archaeologist watch the machine in
Yep.
case something is seen, and then you stop the machine. You do your really quick site survey. You document what's in the back dirt. If there's a feature in the sidewall of the trench, you stop and you document it. And then the goal is that you continue the work.
Yeah.
You only hold up the machine for as little time as possible. Well, my very first job as a monitor,
Mhm.
dog, um, was down in the Southwest. And the first thing that I was told when I got there was, there's nothing here.
Yeah.
There's nothing here. And this is coming from the contractor or the foreman of the construction project, who, of course, doesn't want an archaeologist on the site. He wants to be digging.
Yeah.
And the company that I had worked for had not done the background. That had been contracted and split up in some stupid way with another company.
Mhm.
So this other company had done all of the literature searching and everything and came up with all the background history. And this is what you might find there, and this is what you might not.
Mhm.
So essentially, we're operating on the idea that this is the Hohokam land. This is Hohokam.
Yeah.
So we might find something, but there's nothing recorded there,
Yeah.
and there was nothing saying that there had been anything there prior to this trailer park that had been there, or shanty town, or whatever it had been. And the guy came out and he said, "There's nothing here. Go home." And I'm
Mhm.
like, "No, you're not paying me. I'm getting paid by a different company. I'm going to be here. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
Uh, if I get hit by the machine, it's not your problem." And fine, whatever. But he was insistent there was nothing there. And the second scoop of the backhoe bucket was a burial.
Yeah.
Well, what I just said about the quick sketch, take pictures of the broken pottery in the back dirt and get them moving. Oh,
Yeah.
well, this company that I was working for had an osteologist on staff to do burials. As an
Yeah.
archaeologist, I was not allowed
Yeah.
because I did not have enough seniority or experience dealing with burials. They
Yeah.
needed me to meet a criteria that I did not meet. So we had to
Yeah.
call in the osteologist, who was in
Yeah.
Tucson,
Yeah. Exactly.
which is 4 hours away. And lo and behold, she was not immediately available.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, guess what had to stop?
The construction.
All the work. All
Yeah.
the work. Not just that backhoe, the entire block
Yeah.
had to wait. Great. The lady shows up. We clear the burial in about an hour and a half. We're good. It's not indigenous. It's a historic burial.
Yeah.
Machine fires up. Burial. Third scoop of the day. Burial.
Yeah.
What had happened is that the company who did the work previously, who did the lit search, did a really shitty job of the lit search.
Yeah.
I was able to find a Sanborn map that
Mm.
shows it. Pioneer Cemetery, 1919.
Oh my God.
The long and the short of it is, going back about 4,500 years, 400 and something change burials were mined out of that lot
Yeah.
because it was a burial ground. And sure, it was, I might have dug 100 projects like that and never encountered a burial one.
Yeah.
But the point is that the historical record said there was nothing there.
Mhm.
If you did a shitty job, if you did a better job, they would have known and
Yeah.
they would have been able to progress accordingly. But the thing is that the reason why we were on the ground is because we knew 100% that the historical record was not going to be 100%.
Yeah.
And any historian, especially ironically enough, the people who have issues with it, being the colonial or
Yeah.
the Confederacy or whatever sites, is that they're purposely ignoring
Yep.
an entire facet of the story of that landscape.
Mm-hmm.
They are presenting a history that is not complete. So when they say they don't need archaeologists because they know everything they need to know about history, that is an outright lie.
Yeah.
And that is like make them walk the plank.
Yeah.
Make them walk through the gauntlet and get whipped with the dirk scabbards, like
Yeah.
on the Royal Navy ships. That is such a garbage thing to say.
My
Where
boss,
the
one of
rivalry comes from,
yeah.
I think is something is as cliche as attention,
Yeah.
because the academics are academics. What's your first association with it? If someone says, I mean, what's your first association with an archaeologist? Just say, like Dibble.
Yeah.
He's dresses in tweed.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a particularly athletic little man. He lives in a classroom and he teaches archaeology.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you have people like us
Yeah.
who
Who
are out in the
are
field. We're a lot more mobile. I mean,
we're climbing
we're outdoorsy. We're kind of rugged. We got experience.
to
You
pull
know,
my
there's
yeah, to pull my recent work week, climbing up and down, steep hillsides and having
yeah,
to worry about like legitimately,
adventure.
yeah, yeah.
You're
I
doing adventure. You
Yeah,
know,
we legitimately came across a ravine that was like just nothing but a hole, and we were trying to figure out how to get
uh,
down there. And
well,
one
the other
guy
day,
went one way, and it was just a steep rock face up and steep
yeah,
rock face down, and we were just like, "Well, fuck this,"
you get to do adventure. You're out
Yeah,
doing. Hell, a month ago or two
yeah,
months ago, how did I get to the site?
yeah. You
In
you
a
have
helicopter.
in a helicopter,
I got to
yeah,
get in a helicopter and play Fortunate Son the whole way. That's awesome. That's cool.
yeah.
Some academic in an office is not going to have that.
No,
So when you have a rivalry like this come up, considering the fact that these two entities are so close and so
yeah,
closely related and reliant
yeah,
on each other. And I'm going to say that history is reliant on archaeology a lot more than archaeology is reliant on
yeah.
history.
I would agree. Yeah,
But we're still it's a symbiotic relationship there.
yeah. Because
The
well,
fact that
especially yeah,
somebody wants to say that archaeologists don't matter, I'm going to point to what you pointed out, is
yeah,
that those sites, that the people who are saying that
yeah,
are the ones who have a in place narrative that they do not want to get away from,
yeah,
and that in archaeology, we can see that, and it's going away because they're all old and they're all dying,
yeah.
is Clovis first.
Yep.
Is the example of, all of these old archaeologists who are professors or tenured out or whatever now, they wrote their papers, they cut their teeth on Clovis first, because Clovis first at that time
Yeah.
was an acceptable and very possible hypothesis
Yeah.
until the technology got better, the archaeology got more in depth, more sites were being discovered showing that Clovis first is not accurate.
No.
And what did we do that Graham Hancock and all of the other pseudoscience peddling fools out there say we don't do?
We
We
changed our
adapted,
mind. Yeah.
we changed,
Yeah.
like every other scientific body out there. We
Exactly.
changed because the evidence because the evidence was there,
Yeah.
because the need to change was there, you know? So,
Yeah. Well, yeah, my boss at a historic site I worked for a couple years back. She was also an archaeologist, and she told me about, and we had a run in with this group all the time. It was this historical society, and they didn't like us archaeologists, but like she told me like when she first got hired, the like the previous person who held person who held the position previously was a historian. And they're like, you're an archaeologist. We don't need you in this position. We need a historian. And it's just like, are you fucking kidding me? Archaeologists are, yeah, and so yeah, it's a thing that's unfortunately been around for a while. And as you have confirmed, as I have confirmed, as Howard Williams and ArchaeoSoup have confirmed, as Melissa in Denial, as ArchaeoChica, as our other mutual Kelly, historically ADHD, has confirmed. Like all of us archaeologists have run into this shit, It's Ted Sturmer, another somebody who's not an archaeologist, but who's a historian, as confirmed. Like this is something that is out there, and again, going back to Arash Azizi, his article in the Atlantic and his, you know, putting the proverbial dick of academia and the pearly gates, the ivory tower, what have you, of academic history and books and things like that is a direct uh symptom of this,
Yeah, of this rivalry.
of this rivalry.
You know
And
who's not needed
yeah,
is
it's
an academic.
yeah,
Dare obviously that's an extreme, but if you think about it,
yeah,
someone in our position, you or me,
yeah,
field people,
yeah.
could be an academic.
Well, you and I, well, hang on, here you
We
go.
are academics. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, here you go. Here's another example. You and I in CRM. How many times have we run into somebody who has a master's or has just freshly gotten out of their master's or is going into their
And
master's
they're
or whatever,
hired because of the paperwork and not
and,
because of their experience.
and then they don't know what they're doing, and we have to
Oh,
hold
never.
their hand. Oh yeah,
Never. That
never.
doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
Come
We have
on.
to. We never have to hold their fucking hands,
What's a shovel
and
test?
yeah, and to be fair, we're gentle with it because we understand that it's not their fault. It's the
Yeah.
other, but it's still something that happens. Now, let me make this clear, and this is something I've told other CRM people before. Like understanding this,
Lord.
we
Oh.
we do also need people in those universities because who the fuck is going
Oh,
to teach the next generation? Because
exactly.
yeah,
I
like
mean, so
yeah,
that's that,
we need
so
this
that's the error
symbiotic
with
work.
what I just said is that we
Yeah,
don't need academics. No, we
yeah,
absolutely do.
yeah,
Call me old,
yeah,
but I remember when the difference between an academic or the
yeah,
reason, when academics and blue collar guys
yeah,
had the line, it was the if you went to school,
yeah.
you were an academic.
But like that's the
And if you
thing.
went into the job
Yeah,
right out of college or right out of high school, you're a blue collar worker.
but that's the thing. We went to school and
We
we're
went to school,
also,
which means you and I are academics,
but we're
according to
also,
the
yeah,
guy who went out into the oil fields when he turned 18 because
yeah.
that's what his daddy done and his daddy done and his daddy done.
But
It's like,
but let's face it, CRM archaeologists are blue collar
oh,
workers anyway.
absolutely.
So yeah, they like you
Absolutely.
cannot tell me otherwise.
Because
We're yeah,
archaeology starts with an A. And I'm going
yeah,
to tell you, and this is going to piss off the oil guys and the coal guys and the concrete guys and the construction guys. A comes first in the alphabet, which
yeah,
means every single one of those projects is cleared culturally, cleared by
yep,
archaeologists to do the job. Which
yep,
is why they don't really like us because we might tell them, "Hey, you can't work here because there's a site."
yep.
Meanwhile, they're not losing any money, contrary to what somebody says.
No, yeah,
If the multi-billion-dollar or corporation stops paying you, the low-level bottom worker, because they're held up for a couple of days, you might want to quit that job.
yeah, yeah. They're lying. Yeah,
They
they're not
can't
going
afford to
to.
do that.
Yeah,
They can't afford to not pay their people
nope.
because if their people get up and go, that company's dead.
Yeah, exactly. And they can lie all they want, but that's not the case. And like the amount
That's
of time,
lobbying.
yeah, the amount of times I've been to a project like where the construction was supposed to have begun already, and and we were still sent out there, because the construction company fucked something up or this, that, and the other, like I could, like it's incalculable. And like the amount of times I've done that and people like, and oftentimes the property owners and the people who we talk to aren't blaming us. They're just asking like, hey, when is this construction actually going to begin? And we're like, I don't know. We've done our job. I don't know how. Like there was a project I was on recently that was like the it was titled project number XYZ, ABC 123, fourth addendum, because it was the fourth time we had been sent out there by the construction company because they wanted to expand their project.
I have to do
And
it again. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and even though we gave them the go ahead already previously, it was expanded
For a
again.
certain APE.
Yeah, and
That's
so
the thing.
and again, it's like, and none of the property owners were blaming us. They're like, well, when do you think they're going to begin it? And like, we don't know. We've given them the go ahead. I don't know what more we can do for these people, you know. So yeah, it's like it's just yeah, it's they yeah, that I don't know what more to say than
So
that, you know. It's just like we need academics, but like we also need them to calm the fuck down and they need to realize that they need us as well,
I I
you
think
know.
yeah, so I think what in the end,
Yeah.
I think everybody does need to grow up because I can guarantee you as much as we're trying to be
Oh yeah,
um
no.
as understanding and socially as politically correct as possible back and forth. There are people who are not academics who are flat out fuck academia. We don't need them. Even
Yeah.
in our field.
Yep.
Will you stop, dog? I
And
know. I heard him too.
I've run into that before where it's like, oh, don't get a doctorate because of the likeliness of you getting tenure. It's like, okay, well, for one thing, tenure is going out the window anyway. Anyone who like Tad Sturmer, a mutual of ours, he pointed that out. He's like, tenure is like they're like career academics who are still not getting tenure. He's like, that's going to go the way of the dinosaurs eventually. But two, you shouldn't like the point is not for tenure. The point is we need people in that position to teach the next generation of archaeologists because it is something that needs a college degree, and you can't teach a college degree while going on a 10-day project doing ped surveys, shovel tests, what have you, you know, like
Yeah. No, agreed.
but at the same time, you know, a lot of the information learned by and used by academics. Yeah.
Considering the vehement
Yeah.
aggression towards anything educational in this country.
Yeah.
Hi, stop that. You would think that we'd all turn and look at that,
Yeah.
address that. Project 25, you know,
Yeah. Well, and yeah.
European land war with Russia, all of this stuff. You think that we would figure out the way to combat that,
Hmm.
you know, continued attempts at cultural erasure and all of that stuff, and that we wouldn't argue amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I don't like this guy from the Greek philosophy department. That's because I don't like the guy from the Greek philosophy department, not because we don't need him.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. And
because
that's yeah.
it's because he took my parking space. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's yeah. And that's
I
the
feel like
issue.
as quote unquote academics across the
Yeah.
board, all of us, we
Yeah.
should be above this petty garbage.
I agree. And I think you know that's a good ending point. We should be above all this petty garbage, and the
You
fact that
know,
this rivalry exists is ridiculous and it needs to go away. And people like Arash Azizi and the people at Mount Vernon, uh, Colonial Williamsburg, etc., need to shut the fuck up.
well,
You
I
know?
mean, I think here's the thing, and that I don't think they realize
Yeah.
is that if it gets really serious across the board, this, uh, um, this rivalry, this dismissal of one field
Yeah.
because of a narrative that's in place,
Yeah.
something's going to come along and show like an intentional, you know, steering of the program that is going to
Mhm.
violate some sort of ethics, is
Yeah.
going to violate some sort of standard for grants, is going to violate some sort of standard under the Historic Preservation Act or anything like that. And suddenly those programs are going to get chopped to pieces.
Yeah.
They're going
I
to get
agree.
decimated.
I agree.
For what reason? Well, they don't want to acknowledge that black people were at Mount Vernon.
Hmm.
Guys, how about you acknowledge that there were no white people at Mount Vernon until about 300 years ago?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Come on.
So, yeah.
So what is it? History does not have any feelings towards us.
Yeah.
Or yeah, history does not give a shit about us.
Hmm.
History is full of things that people do not want to acknowledge.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this and stuff before. I've pointed this out. There are things in history that nobody wants to acknowledge about their past. It does not matter your
Mhm.
religion. It does not matter your ethnicity. It does not matter your gender. It does not matter. Because at some point in history, a group of people who are African sold another group of people who are African into slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And a group of people who are Asian
Yeah.
absolutely decimated another group of people who are Asian in a battle.
Yep.
I mean that is humanity.
Yep.
Every single facet of humanity has something that they don't want to acknowledge in their past. The the thing is that it's in the past.
Mm-hmm.
This is the chance to grow up and get past it and learn from it and not do it again.
Yeah. Not try to sweep it under
You
the
know,
rug.
not try to sweep it under the rug. Acknowledge it, gain some sort of strength from it. Take the beating of it,
Yeah.
which will make you not do it again. The
Yeah.
punishment, whatever. And then move into the future.
Yeah.
You know, and there is nothing wrong. I mean, there is nothing wrong with acknowledging that the past is awful.
Yeah.
There's
Exactly.
nothing because we're not the past.
No.
We're now. You
Yeah.
know, I am not my eighth time great grandfather who was the only cop in the family and
Yeah.
had something to do in Salem.
Yeah.
Just say I'm not him.
I'm not my relative Andrew Jackson, whom I very much
Oh,
shit
I've heard of
on.
him.
I
Yeah,
shit on him.
yeah.
I shit on
I
him
mean,
constantly.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, we are not those things.
Yeah, exactly.
And the idea that that we have to protect the future from the reality of those things,
Yeah.
that's so stupid. That is so stupid. That's like purposely telling people that bears and bison are cuddly. Don't touch them, but they're cuddly and they're friendly. Because as a kid they had a stuffed animal that said so.
Yeah, exactly.
Because what happens is that somebody's going to walk up and they're going to get killed by one, and then suddenly that's the past. Saying, "Oh fuck, that's not exactly what, you know."
Well,
So,
I mean, y-
I mean, it's meant to be an analogy. It might not be a good one, but
well, I don't
it's
know. I don't know. Given the amount of people I see on social media who decide in Yellowstone to go fuck around and find
is
out what
not friend.
bison.
If not
Yeah.
friend, why friend shape? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I no, that's a perfect example. But
Yeah.
it's like how many people never learned because it was never taught to them that
Yeah.
bison are gonna fucking kill you.
Yeah.
Bisons are just a big cow. How dangerous can a cow be? You've never talked to a buffalo or a bull rider
Yeah.
or a steer roper who's got 47 broken bones.
Or hell, yeah, or hell, just a cattle rancher and who
Just a
got on
basic
the wrong,
hand. Yeah,
yeah,
basic ranch hand.
who got on the wrong end of a bowl and heat or something, you
Yeah,
know.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, education in the full facet of things is incredibly important.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and in places that want to steer a narrative a certain way, what is your agenda? That's
Hmm.
because that's an agenda.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to acknowledge, I mean, I don't want to personally, yeah, I don't want to be associated with colonialism. I don't.
No,
Do
but
I acknowledge it's there? Yes. Is it important to acknowledge? Yes. Do I want to
yes.
put my hat on it as something I'm proud of? No.
No. Yeah.
But for me to cut that part of the story out
Yeah.
is absolute is heinous.
Hmm.
It's a heinous thing to do.
I agree. Yeah.
So, I mean, it would be wonderful. And like I said, because humans are human and every single facet of humanity has done horrible things, it'd be great if everybody got on that same page of today is 2024. Today is different than the same time 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
We are not 1,000 years ago. We are today. Do today as today. Now, if you decide to do the same thing they did 1,000 years ago, well, that's your personal choice, and the society of today will come down on you like a bag full of hammers. But it we're not the past.
Yeah. I
We are the
agree.
present going towards the future. So we need to know the whole story in
Hmm.
order to not repeat the whole story.
Yep. I think that. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
You
So
know,
yeah.
and across the board.
Yeah. Across
And
the board.
and 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 that is why education is so important. And that's why any situation like this that steers or stifles or trims the fat off of or cherry picks education is just bad.
Yeah. It really is.
What's that movie? Interstellar. You ever watch that?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, I know. My
The
favorite
moon
scene.
landing, it was
Yeah,
made to bankrupt the Russians. And the
that
whole reason is that they're trying to make sure people don't go, oh, I want to fly an airplane. I
yeah.
want to be a farmer. Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in that is Matthew McConaughey going like, they're like, what are you gonna do? He's like, well, I'm gonna check
I'm
her out
going
of
to
school and I'm gonna take
take
her
her for
ice
ice
cream
cream.
and yeah, and all this exactly. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
so in some like one Arash Azizi's an asshole and he put a lot of people in
I've
danger
got a
because
picture of him
yeah,
up on the screen here.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, he looks like one.
yeah.
Not that
And
I'm sure people look at me and go, God, what a dickhead that guy is. But I'm looking at this dude going,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And
how many people have a complaint against him with HR?
yeah, that's my question too.
How many
Like
women have a complaint with him in
yeah,
HR?
yeah, exactly, because he put
And
people at risk, and
and even that is an unfair, unkind, and unacceptable thing for me to say because I'm doing a flash judgment on a guy just by his picture.
well, at this point, I disagree because at this point we've
Of
seen
course,
his action. Yeah,
but I of course had no idea what he looked like. I had no idea about this article until we started talking about it.
yeah,
Like I'm
exactly.
like, well, I must have missed something,
Yeah,
and apparently I did, and
yeah,
apparently it's something that if I had known about it when it came about,
yeah,
I mean, I would have had my hackles up.
yeah,
My
and
judgment
yeah,
on the guy is based on the article he wrote, based on what we just talked about and everything.
yeah, based
So
on his
everything,
actions. Yeah,
I mean, I have a poor opinion of him to begin with, and the picture doesn't help.
yeah, exactly.
But if I were to look at that picture and you told me that this guy wrote a fantastic piece on on cooking
Then that would
or
be another thing.
fantastic piece on building car engines or something, I'd look at it and be like, "Oh, okay," and I'd read it, I'd accept it, and I'd be like, "That's awesome." The
Yeah, and
fact
that's
that
yeah,
I had an understanding of the kind of person he was before I even looked at the picture.
yeah,
Either way,
yeah, and
I
that's
just find the
yeah.
whole
Yeah, and that's the point. And then that's that's exactly it. Like Arash Azizi's an asshole. He put a lot of people at risk because of his assholery. And this rivalry there between academics and specifically in this case, in Arash Azizi's case, academic historians and basically anyone else who doesn't fit within their ivory tower box is stupid, and they need to just shut up and let people
that's a
coexist
very
symbiotically.
self-depreciating thing for him to say about himself.
Exactly, but like they need to just shut up and let archaeologists and
Arash, I'm
historians.
sorry
Yeah,
that I was mean to you. Don't hate yourself so bad that you take it out on the rest of us.
yeah, please. But like, yeah,
Because I mean, what is the other reason?
yeah, exactly. But yeah, let archaeologists and historians and other groups within that broader field of anthropology and humanities and social sciences coexist and work together symbiotically, please. Please. And
Yeah,
that's really just
it's
about it.
yeah. I mean,
So
this is like medicine and chemistry that makes medicine.
yeah,
Actual the practicing of medicine and the people that make pharmaceuticals.
yeah, exactly.
You don't have to be one to be the other, but
Mm-hmm.
they rely on each other.
Yep, exactly.
If the
And I,
doctors come along and say we don't need the people who make prescriptions, how are the doctors going to heal people? Not that they do. This is just this.
yeah, yeah,
Welcome to the
exactly.
American healthcare system.
Yeah, well, and
But I
also,
mean,
yeah.
if the people who make pharmaceutical drugs go, well, we don't need the doctors to prescribe these things, that just sounds like a bad time. I mean,
Yeah,
God.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, so all in all, these were important subjects to be discussed, and with this is this is the last video in the series because we like it's like it's just essentially stuff to watch out for. Just don't
Oh
please
yeah.
don't
How
don't
much
listen to people.
profanity did I put in this one that's not in the other ones?
Oh no, it's pretty much
Okay.
across the board. Yeah, it's pretty much across the
So
board.
yeah, that's one of the things to remember about archaeologists is that
Yeah,
booze,
and
things,
we
and profanity. We use it
profanity. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and it's just like
even
we've
when we don't need to because we're academics.
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sorry, no.
Yeah, don't listen to people like
Hi,
Arash
Akatan.
Azizi.
I'm sorry, but I'm not picking you up.
Yeah.
What? But
But
you
don't
eat
listen to people like Arashi in any way. Sorry, if they have actual academic articles or things like that that actually have good information, listen to them. I don't want to say that, but don't listen to them when they say things like, "Oh, public archaeology bad," and then turn around and go on to a show with somebody who looks like Joe Rogan and
be
talks about,
critical.
yeah, be critical.
Don't it's not even a don't listen to them. It is a be critical of
Yeah,
them. Because like I just said, he could write something that's absolutely fantastic, be 100% true.
yeah.
He absolutely could. The problem is his intention behind it, his actions, what he did, and how he wrote the thing, which is why the reader has to take some responsibility for what they're reading. So
Mm-hmm.
if you read this thing and you pick up like you did, you read it
Yep.
first and you were like, yeah, this actually makes kind of a bit of sense. And then you read it again
Yep.
and you went, wait a second. And then you read it a third time and every single red flag is laying it out in perfect,
Yeah.
technicolor for you.
Yeah. Crimson.
That
Yeah.
is you being critical.
Critical. Yeah.
That is you taking the steps to be critical of the source that you are reading. And
Mm-hmm.
that is a responsibility, I think, on all of us because everybody could read something, read the headline, and the headline is going to tell you the thing that makes it super exciting, cool. And if you don't read the rest of the story, you might not know what's in that story.
Yeah.
And that's the person who comes up and says, hey, did you hear they found a train full of Nazi gold? Well, okay, cool. Where'd you see that? And they show you the article, and you read the article, and it actually tells you, because I did a TikTok on this, where
Yeah.
it actually tells you that the guy who made the claim went back with GPR and they actually found out that it was a giant reef of granite or something like that, and they didn't actually find shit.
That's great.
But the headline made it sound like they did. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
you got to read.
Yeah.
So when something like This Is Easy thing comes out, or the Graham Hancock stuff comes out, as much as I'm like, don't read his shit, the understanding that if you are critical of,
Mm-hmm.
that is how to not fall into the hole of misinformation or
I agree.
fall into the hole of being led down a steered and designed path, like with Mount Vernon or something like that.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, and I'm making a TikTok about it tomorrow, but I got a really good comment asking about sources because that's my
Yeah.
thing. For those people who don't know, one of the things I always say is cite your sources. And
Yeah.
jokingly, I dropped the level of what I would consider a source out of desperation for the conspiracy theory people to give me a source. Cite a coloring book. Cite
Yeah.
the crossword from Denny's. If you cite a source, at least for the love of gods, I will go, oh, well, at least you're trying.
Yeah.
But somebody asked
Yeah.
a few things. They're like, if the source I used uses a source, do I have to track down the old source? The answer is no,
No.
depending on what you're doing. You
Yeah.
know, what if you find that this author you're reading gives you 5 really good points, but he only used 5 points because it was kind of focused information from someone who used 10 or 20. And you, as the writer, want to expand your argument. Yes. Why don't you check
Bingo.
out the old source too, just to see what it's going to tell you? The other question was, what if the source is garbage? What if someone cites Graham Hancock?
Oh God. Yeah.
And here's the truth.
Well, it's
I've
also in
cited Graham Hancock.
Yeah, I was about to say it's also in
We have
context. So
all,
yeah.
I think, who have written down something like this or have been in this field where we have written down and addressed things about histories and stuff like that. We have cited people like Graham Hancock or Graham Hancock directly. The context in which we are doing it is
Yeah.
very key. Now, if I say I cited Graham Hancock and I'm writing a history of the Americas, or I'm writing a history of the Navajo in the Grand
Yeah.
Canyon, and I cite Graham Hancock as proof of something,
Yeah. That's the issue.
that obviously is incorrect. That obviously is something someone's going to come along and say, okay, this is not backed up. Did you look at his source?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's either made up or whatever. But if I cite Graham Hancock as the problems facing archaeology within Arizona, around the Grand Canyon, and the perception of indigenous cultures in this area, you have, some of the problems is the misinformation that is out there. Like Graham Hancock's argument on his 2024 television show, Ancient Apocalypse, episode 2, you know,
Yeah.
and you give that episode because I'm citing the problems that Graham Hancock is putting forth as pseudoscience.
Yeah.
I'm citing Graham Hancock's shit for what it is, but not as a fact that
Yeah.
ties to that. You
Yeah.
know, that is the citation.
Yeah.
Talking
Another.
to somebody, this
Yeah.
conversation, if I remember something that you told me, I'm going to go, oh, what's my citation?
Yeah.
Conversation with Dane Roberts, October 18th, 22, or yeah, personal communication. Or I'm going to cite myself, Kinney M,
Yeah.
personal communication with Dane Roberts,
Yeah.
10/18/2024.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then maybe a brief blip about what we're saying, depending on your citation style. And
Yeah.
it's going to go into the whatever I'm writing, and someone is going to come along and be like, "Oh, well, I don't know if I buy this," so they can reach out to you.
Yeah.
They can reach out to me. This Dane Roberts guy, what's he do that makes him an expert? And they're going to look you up and be like, "Oh, you're an archaeologist. You do CRM archaeology in the southeast of the United States. You've been doing it for 15 years. You obviously, you've held X number of positions as
Yeah.
crew chief.
Yeah.
Well, gee, you must know what you're talking about."
Yeah.
That is a citation.
Yeah.
That is being critical of the writing. So, the sources exist to show that you, the writer, are not plagiarizing. The sources also exist for the reader to come along and be like, huh, I want to know, I want to learn more about what the writer is talking about.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's
Exactly.
when you go and start chasing. So
Yeah. Well, and
that's why
also,
people have to be critical. That's the whole long
yeah.
roundabout way of
Yeah.
saying that. Sorry.
Well, no, no, that's okay. I was going to add on to your thing, talking about like citing Graham Hancock to point out why his information is bad. Two good examples of this book called Frauds, Myths, and Mysteries, talking about the history of pseudo archaeology. You
I have
know,
it somewhere.
yeah, I have it on my bookshelf too. But also
Uh,
another book.
Ken
Oh,
Fader.
yep, another good book, The Myth of the Mound Builders, where goes into the history of the mound builder myth, and it's talking about the racist history of the myth of the mound builders. Neither Ken Fader's book or that book are actually, proposing that these theories are true. They're just pointing out, hey, here is what they said, and here's why this is wrong.
Here's where this ridiculous comes from. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is actually, if you want to think about this in a lot of ways, this is what this entire series of videos that I did is. So, yeah. So with that, we'll end the video there. Please be critical. Please don't listen to Russia's Easy unless it's actual
Please be
information.
critical.
Yeah,
Please be critical of the professionals.
yeah, of the professionals.
So,
Yeah,
not. I mean, yes, be critical of everybody. But when I say be critical of the professionals, if you hear something that a professional like me or Dane or anybody else says,
yeah.
do not feel afraid or
To
anything like that to say, can you elaborate?
or to
Where did you
fact
get
check
that
us.
information?
Yeah,
Where do you get off on saying this? Obviously, don't say it that way. Some of us might not respond in the most
no.
civil of terms, but if people enter into if you ask the questions,
Yeah,
you will get the answers.
yeah, exactly. And if
Do
you
not feel bad about testing.
Yeah, and as long as you cite your source, it is okay to fact check us
Yeah,
as long
absolutely.
as you have a source. But with
Because
that, yeah,
that's the other thing. If you say
yeah.
you tell us to cite our sources and we do, and then you do not, that is that
Mhm.
again is a
Yeah,
that was an entered into not good faith. I
yeah,
had somebody on
exactly.
Threads try to get into an argument with me about
Yeah.
the Navajo and the Nepalese being the same people.
Uh, God.
And the book they cited was a web page called atlan.org.
Of course. Yeah.
And it's like, well, you didn't do any research. It's like,
Neither did you.
Well, neither did you, for one. And
Yeah.
two, how do you know?
Yeah.
Well, you didn't read this book. I'm like, no, but I've read the 4,700 other books
Yeah.
about the history of the Americas, history in Asia, history of Nepal, history of the Himalayas, history of the Navajo, history of the Hopi, who are really close to the Navajo, history of the Paiute, and all these communities that exist in the same landmass. Nothing about what your one book says or exists in any of that.
Yeah,
So here's
exactly.
my source base. Here's my bibliography.
Yeah.
Yes, that sounds very arrogant to say, but sometimes it's like,
Mm-hmm. It is exactly. So yeah. So with that, we'll end this video here. Thank you, Morgan, for for coming
yeah,
on. Yeah,
thanks for
because
having me. Sorry, it's been
oh no, I
a
understand
wild
completely.
ride.
It's been a while. Well, it's been a while ride with the series because again, a lot of we all a lot of us came to the same conclusions, and also like we realized, oh, we've independently had the same fucking experiences in similar ways. So
This is not that unique or
yeah,
big of a career field.
no, it's not,
To be
and so
perfectly honest, we
no, it's
we all
not.
if I mean, I guarantee you, and I might be short on names at the moment, but I've worked in person with someone who has worked with Dane, if not
Yeah.
someone who worked with Dane, like what 2 degrees of separation to Kevin Bacon or some shit like that,
Yeah,
or
something
three
something like that.
degrees.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So
archaeology is very much 3 degrees separation
yeah,
from people.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I might not know somebody that worked for Dane, but I might know somebody that worked for the company that Dane works for, or
Yeah,
I may have worked for the company that Dane works for.
exactly. So
It's so it's not that big.
yeah, it's
So it's
not.
not surprising that we all experience the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so like again, Morgan, thank you for coming on.
Of course.
And this is a great fit into this series, especially now that we finally have confirmation for what actually Keanu is doing on
Jack
on
Indoor shit.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, exactly. All right. With that, everyone, remember to like, share, and subscribe to this video and this channel. Leave a comment in the comment section if you want us to cover me or Morgan or both of us to cover any of the subjects we mentioned in this video in greater
Yep.
detail in later videos. In fact, I do actually at one point have the intention of doing an in-depth video on exactly what the fucking myth of the mound builder myth is. So that's gonna be fun. But I've got other projects that are ahead of that. But any other subjects you want us to cover later in later videos, please feel free to tell us about it. I will try to get to it as soon as possible. And then you all have a good day, and thank you for watching.
Take care, everybody.
Yep.